on regular meeting of the Board of Directors, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, our last meeting for Monday, December 14th, 2020, 5 p.m. Roll call, please.
Director Riley?
Here.
Director Evans?
Present.
Director Paul?
Potter here.
Director Paul?
Here.
Director Anderson?
Hear me?
I just unmute.
Okay.
Director Anderson?
Here.
Director Adams?
Here.
And Director Edwards?
Here. All right, thank you. Our next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is a good one. Administrating an oath of office to Molly Director Evans, Division 3, Karen Paul, Division 4, Amy Anderson, Division 5. Arlene?
Yes. Director Evans, would you please recite the oath?
Yes. Will. I, Molly Evans, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Karen Paul, please raise your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Karen Paul, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Amy Anderson, would you please raise your right hand and recite the oath?
I, Amy Anderson, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much and congratulations, Amy.
Thank you, Arlene, and congratulations to all three of you. And we'll take a little bit of comments from Director Evans. You can go first, and followed by Director Paul, and then Director Anderson, and then the board members. All right.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say that I appreciate the faith that the people of Division 3 have put in me over the last 5 years, and that all of the feedback that I've gotten from them and their input, and I am honored to be serving a second term at their request.
Director Paul, you can go. Start if
Humbled.
Excuse me, Director Paul, I just unmuted you so you can begin your statement, but you'll be able to unmute yourself this evening.
Okay. I would just like to say that I'm honored that the voters have entrusted this responsibility to me and that I meant every word of the oath that I just took. I've sworn oaths before when I was admitted to the bar and when I took a job with the state of California. But with everything that's going on in the country, it strikes me how important these oaths are, that they really mean something. And I really mean that I will do my utmost to try to meet the needs of the community when it comes to managing our water. Thanks for putting your trust in me.
thank you. Director Anderson.
I want to thank, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank the voters of the 5th District for putting their trust in me and for making a choice for moving our water issues ahead and hopefully getting out of a logjam. I do take this post extremely seriously, and it's probably the only thing that I would have been interested in running in because I feel really strongly about it, and I feel very strongly about community engagement. So I'm looking forward to it, and I will do my very best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Adams, do you want to make any comments?
Yes, I just want to welcome the new board members and the returning board member, as brief as it may be. I'm just so delighted to have two very capable women joining this board, very well educated and women who have experience in both water and other issues that will come before this board. It's a delight to have the honor of serving with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Potter, do you want to make any comments?
Sure, I'd be glad to be a little bit governmentally redundant and endorse and support the arrival of the new members. And Molly, obviously, I'll miss you dearly. But to the new members, I really am glad you guys come forward. There's no hotter topic out there than water, and you guys are well versed and well schooled in the topic. Looking forward to participating with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Director Rowley, do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, this is kind of odd comment, I think, but during the COVID, when the kids can't go back to school, I feel like a new class is started today, even though it's on Zoom. And I'm kind of excited about, you never know who the new kids are going to be in your classroom. And I'm just so pleased that there are some new kids in this classroom. And I'm looking forward to not only getting to know them better as public servants, but also on water issues in general. So welcome aboard, and I look forward to it. Thank you. I'm going to miss you. I'm just really, really going to miss you. The best of luck to you.
You have comments to make to Director Evans later. She got something coming to her. Just a few comments from the chair here. I want to congratulate all three of you. As a matter of fact, I want to congratulate all the board because it was the election. It was a big one this year. Division 3, 4, and 5, and Mayor Potter was up for re-election, and our supervisor was up for re-election. I want to congratulate all of you. I believe the public, and the public has showed that they have faith in you. And the word of mandate came up a couple of times over the last couple of years. I think the public has gave us a mandate now with the re-election and the election of these new board members on Measure J and on water supply. But I want to thank you for being elected. I want to thank all those that ran too. So that's my comments on that, and we'll move along. Our next item is, do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, we do not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, General Manager. Our next comment is for the public. It's oral communication time. Anyone wish to address the board on consent calendar, information item, closed session item, or matters not listed on the agenda may do so only during oral communication. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The public may comment on all other items at the time they are presented. Arlene, oral communication is open.
All right. Michael Bear, please present your comment.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new board members. Thrilled to see this configuration. I'd like to make a suggestion that you guys make a trophy. I believe Molly Evans has the proud distinction of being someone who has served the longest term and the shortest term. She had a 5-year term. I don't think anybody's had a 5-year term. I don't know if that's absolutely true, and I think she's going to have about a 5-hour term, is my understanding. The other item I'd like to address is I read in the Pinecone this week that Cal-Am is going to be suing the district, and some of the comments from some of the Cal-Am people related to that. I'm wondering, I didn't notice anywhere in the agenda, I just have a question, if there's going to be any review. I assume it's part of the closed session at the end of the meeting, and is the public going to be given any information about this development tonight? Thank you. That concludes my comment.
Thank you.
Caller, please present your comment.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Ann Coppernall. I would like to express my warmest congratulations to both Amy Anderson and Karen Paul for their election to serve on this wonderful Monterey Peninsula Water Management District Board. They were perfect role models in how to conduct positive, well-issued research campaigns that did not denigrate their opponents or in any way become negative. They are a fantastic asset to a board already consisting of stellar members that make us very proud. I wish Amy and Karen the best and know they are precious jewels that will shine throughout their tenure, bringing great contributions to the work ahead. Thank you to all board members and staff for your superb efforts to support our communities during difficult, challenging times. Please do all you can to support certification of the Pure Water Monterey Expansion SEIR. You have our support and love. I want to wish Molly Evans very special farewell and thanks for her wonderful job that she has done on the board during her tenure, and she will be missed. She was really a fantastic board member. So thank you so much, Molly, and congratulations to Mary Adams, too, for being reelected. So here's wishing you all a healthy and happy holiday. God bless you.
Caller, please present your comment.
Yes, good evening. Tom Raleigh calling to say congrats to the new electees. I hope someday we're in a meeting where we can watch your performances in person. I've been attending water board meetings for at least 30 years, and it's always been a pleasure to see everybody in person. Hopefully the Zoom meetings will end eventually and we can all see one another in the person meeting. But main reason I'm calling is I wanted to thank the main person that kept the organization, in my opinion, smoothly running all these years, and that's Arlene. And congratulations on your retirement. So thanks very, very much, Arlene. I already appreciated your straight scoop, excellent minutes, and really efficient. And that was what kept the board on the ball all these years. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Aloha.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Oh, that's good. All right, Arlene. Thank you. And our next item is the consent calendar. Any board members like anything pulled from the consent calendar?
And we can all see one another in person meeting. But
Anyone for the board want anything pulled from consent? If not, Arlene, could you see if the public have anyone that want to pull something from consent calendar?
All right, I see 2 raised hands. Are they,
They're left over from public comment.
okay, well, I just wanted to double check. All right, Michael, did you, excuse me, Margaret Ann, did you have a comment?
No, I already made mine. Thank you, though. And
Thank you.
congratulations. We're going to miss you a lot, Marlene.
Thank you. So I see no other comments, Chair Edwards.
I move consent, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion by Director Potter,
I'll second that.
and we got a second by Director Evans. Anything on the question? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Anderson, Director Anderson,
Aye.
Director Paul, Director Paul,
Director Paul, you off mute. Go ahead.
I just unmuted you, Director Paul.
Third time? Aye.
thank you. Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving along. Now another good point here. We got a presentation to our outgoing director, Molly Evans, and Director Jeannie Byrne, and our retiring board clerk, Arlene.
So
Town
these,
manager.
yeah, well, I'm going to turn this over to Supervisor Adams, but I do want to say that we have a long-standing history of saying nice things about people who've served with distinction for many years, and Supervisor Adams took it upon herself to secure resolutions from the county. And as you saw in the staff note, there's little more than we can say because they were very well done. I admire the initiative of the supervisor. So with that, Director Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stoll. And this is for Molly Evans, this very handsomely framed board resolution from the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. I will ensure that I get it to you, Molly, if I have your address in Brooklyn. Wish I could bring it back to you. My daughter and her husband live there as well. I'll just read just
If you could hand deliver, that would be great.
well, maybe I'll keep it until COVID ends. Just a couple of things. I won't read them all, but I just want to say that whereas Molly Evans has served in leadership positions on various nonprofit boards in our county, has earned several professional awards and honors, including Young Engineer of the Year from the New Orleans branch and Louisiana section, Civilian of the Quarter and Civilian of the Year from the Midwest and Fallon. 2016, she was appointed to the Monterey County Commission staff. We have many other whereas, but I just want to give this one, which just simply says that Molly was an active participant on several committees, including the Water Supply Planning Committee, Water Demand Committee, Health Outreach Committee, Administrative Committee, and Legislative Advocacy. She served as chair of the board, chair of the Legislative Advocacy and the Water Demand Committees. She also served as chair of the board. Now, therefore, be it resolved from that the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the county and all the residents therein, hereby acknowledge Molly Evans, Director of Division 3, for 5 years of exceptional service to the community and residents of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. Thank you so very much, Molly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that greatly.
And as I say, I will get it to you one way or another. And I'm sad, I don't think that Jeannie Byrne is with us this evening, but I'd like to just read a couple of words of tribute to Jeannie as well. Once again, handsome friend. Jeannie Byrne is a fourth generation Californian, born and raised in Napa, moving to the Monterey Peninsula in 1977, settling in Pacific. She's a graduate of Cal Poly. She has a long career of public service, including elected mayor of the city of Pacific Grove, appointments to numerous city of Pacific Grove boards and commissions, and a two-time governor's appointee to the Monterey County Fair Board. I'll skip down a few and say, whereas Jeannie was an active participant on several water management district committees, including water supply planning, water demand, public outreach, administrative and legislative advocacy. She served as chair of public outreach, administrative and water demand committees. Whereas Jeannie Byrne is respected and beloved for her generosity and her willingness to mentor new members of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, and her influence will long be remembered and appreciated. So again, therefore be it resolved that the Monterey County Board of Supervisors and all its residents hereby acknowledge Jeannie Byrne, Director, Division of 4, for 9 years of exceptional service to the community and the residents of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. And I will ensure that Jeannie gets this as well. And then finally, this one, I could have just driven down the road and given it to you. I think I know where you are, but I'll make sure that you get this. And I'm going to read all of this since Arlene is here with us. Therefore, this is the resolution recognizing and congratulating Arlene Tavani on her retirement from 35 plus years of service at the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. Whereas Arlene dedicated over 35 years to supporting the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District and several key administrative roles. And whereas Arlene has tirelessly shepherded 44 board members and 8 general managers through their tenures at the Water Management District. And whereas Arlene committed her career to organizing, running, and documenting the array of meetings and events which have directly contributed to the health and renewal of the Carmel River and the Seaside Water Basin. And whereas Arlene developed, implemented, and enforced the district's records retention policy, in addition to creating multiple filing systems and transitioning from the days of paper to the days of electronic mail. And whereas Arlene contributed her time to learn state-of-the-art records management and contributed time and energy to the Association of Records Managers and Administration. And whereas Arlene led the effort for the Water Management District to be recognized with the Transparency Certificate from the California Special Districts Association. And whereas Arlene fostered numerous relationships with local, regional, and state agencies which support efforts of the Water Management District to protect and enhance our local public trust resources. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the county and all residents thereof, hereby recognize and congratulate Arlene Tavani on her retirement from a career in service as executive assistant to the general manager and board clerk of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, and express our sincere thanks and appreciation for your tireless commitment to improving lives in Monterey County. Thank you so much, Arlene, on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Comments, Director Evans, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Thanks, Chair, I do. I want to thank again the folks of Division 3 for believing in me 5 years ago and electing me to this board. It has been such an honor to serve them, and I have enjoyed getting to know many of them along the way. And I am glad that they felt comfortable enough to come to me with their concerns and comments and thoughts. And I hope that they will show my successor the same respect and consider them, their voice on the board. I do want to thank my fellow directors. It has been wonderful serving with you, all of you, current and past. I am sorry, Amy and Karen, I won't have the chance to get to know you like I knew the others. But I know that you will be good board members from what I have seen when you were on the other side of the dais. I also want to thank specifically Mayor Potter, because he is the one that got me started in politics many, many years ago, like 7 or 8.
Sorry for that.
When he appointed me to the Commission on the Status of Women. And so I thank you for for trusting me with that position and for mentoring me through the years through my time here. And I have enjoyed serving with you, and I will miss you in our conversations. Similarly, I would like to thank Director Riley for supporting me in this endeavor and helping me through with information on water issues and background and history and all of that. And I could go on and on. I'll try to keep it short, but I do want to get to the staff. The staff that we have at the Water Management District is just an amazing group of professionals that have always brought facts to the board, never brought an opinion, and just tirelessly executed the policy of the board, whether it was something they agreed with and brought to us, or if it was something different. And so I am very proud to have been on the board of directors for staff as wonderful as the one that we have at the Water Management District. Jonathan and Thomas and Stephanie and Suresh and all of the folks that I don't see as much in the board meetings as they don't do the presentations, Maureen also. And then I also want to thank our admin staff, Sarah and Arlene, for absolutely keeping me straight and making sure that I always showed up to meetings, had all the information I needed, and I appreciate that greatly. In addition to those, we have a wonderful general manager in Dave Stolt, who has been phenomenal to work with, and I have really enjoyed our conversations, all of the discussion and discourse that we've had, especially during my year as chair. And it has just been an honor to be here, and I wish that I would be able to fulfill the second term. But unfortunately, life events came up, and I had to take my career in a different direction. And so I know that I will be keeping in touch with all of you, and I will be keeping an ear out and an eye out and see what happens in the future, because I will return to Monterey, and I'd like to see how it goes over the next few years. So thank you very much for everything from all of you, the public, staff, board members. I really appreciate the last 5 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Evans. Arlene, after 35 years now, you can tell us how you really feel. You had the mic.
Okay. One thing I have found in 35 years that the water business is never dull, never boring. And also there's just so much cynicism and disparagement of elected officials and public employees. And what I have found through these years is that the elected officials are the people who have the courage and the desire to make the difficult decisions, and that the employees then have to have the creativity, the intelligence, and the commitment to carry out all those decisions, often with maybe insufficient staff and difficult to find the funds, but they carry on and they do it with great commitment. And so, and working for this district, I've just seen the elected officials join this, take on this responsibility because they really care. They don't do it because it's fun. It's a difficult place to be. And I've just worked with excellent staff, and that's been just great, working with staff that care very much about doing a good job and carrying out the mission of the district.
Thank you, Arlene. Supervisor Adams, do you want to make any other comments?
Well, I think you've heard enough from me.
All right, ma'am, thank you. Director Potter, you want to make any comments?
Sure. Just I was reading over the staff presentation notes, and I noticed that Molly Evans accepted no employment. Jeannie Byrne decided to retire. But Arlene's the only one who decided to retire and enjoy life. So I would hope the rest of you get with that program. But Arlene, your resolution from the board is extremely well written, and the 7 whereases touch on ingredients that I think all of the members of the commission that are retiring now have, and I'd just like to hit on those: dedicated, tireless, committed, developed, implemented, and enforced, contributed, led, and fostered. Those are ingredients that are hard to find in individuals. But in you as a staff person, you've certainly exemplified what we want most in staff. But I think that also translates very well to the two members that are departing. A couple of very committed people that really did a great job in carrying out the mission of the district. And also your comments about elected officials and the courage it takes for them to step forward. I really appreciate that too. Molly, thanks for the kind words. I'll miss you greatly.
Director Potter. Director Paul, do you have any comments?
I'd just like to say that in the relatively short time that I've been had the chance to work with you, Arlene, as a member of the Citizens Oversight Committee for a little over a year, and recent months as prospective board member, I've been struck consistently how hardworking, thoughtful, intelligent, and conscientious. I am blown away, and I can see by your commitment, it has been just great having your help with everything I ever needed, and I can see how committed you have been. You praised other staff, but you have been so committed to doing your job well. It's exemplary, and you have served well. I really hope that you have the chance to explore some other parts of life in the time ahead.
Thank you. I plan on it.
Thank you, Director Paul. Director Anderson, you have any comments?
Yes. First, I'd like to say to Molly, I'm sorry not to get to know her on the board, but I have watched her for the last couple years on the board, and I have to say she has been an incredibly good role model. I've been very impressed, and I hope that I learned from her all the things that I saw, because she did a wonderful job, and I wish her well. And to Arlene, just a short little story. When my packet for this meeting, my first meeting, got delivered, and I looked at it, and it was 322 pages and over an inch thick. You can imagine what I was thinking. Well, I decided on Saturday night, I'm not going to wait till Sunday. I'm going to take this thing to bed. I'm going to look at it. So I did. And what struck me and what made me feel totally comfortable, I don't know, Arlene, if you were the only one responsible for putting this booklet together.
Oh, no.
Because your name's all over it. But for your part and for everybody else's part, I've been involved in a lot of organizations, and I have never seen more, a better organized document. It was a cinch to understand what was going on, and where it was, the way it's numbered and everything. So I just want to say, for your part and all the organization and all the things that you've helped me with in the last 6 months, I thank you so much, and go out and have a blast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you can thank Sarah Reyes for the production and assembly of that packet.
Okay, I will do.
Director Rowley, you have comments?
Yeah, I have a few. I want to acknowledge the role that I think Byrne played on the district board for a number of years. She did represent business. I think it's important that all public agencies have some business voice. She represented that. I'm going to miss that. I attended a lot of supply committee meetings, and she called me one day and said, "George, I think there's some things that you don't quite understand." And I thought, what the hell is this all about? But anyway, I met with her, and she just grounded me on the Los Padres Dam issue. And I just respected that so much, because she reached out to me. I didn't reach out to her. She reached out to me and just identified an area that she thought I ought to be more informed about. And we spent a couple hours, 2 different meetings on that. And I'm just going to miss her, because I think she was very conscientious, and she just had an outreach gene in her soul. Molly, I don't know what to say. You've been solid. You've been on point. You haven't wasted anybody's time. You get to your point, and there are always points that I wish I had thought of. And so I'm going to miss that because you just have a I don't know, a thoroughness about how you present your issues and how you review and comment on issues too. Arlene, we go back a long ways. I think it was 2008 or so when I first encountered you on some of the repog activity on water. But I also want to compliment you on just this last year. As we entered the COVID period, it seems to me there were a lot of stress points about WebEx and these types of meetings, and you just had a calm demeanor and a proficiency about getting it all done. And I just think, some people rise to the occasion and they don't get flustered. I am so impressed with people that don't get flustered in the midst of just some tension and stressful times. And I just appreciate that. So, and it speaks to your professionalism, encouragement, and commitment, courage and commitment. And anyway, I'm going to miss you too. I know we will continue, but I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some quick comments here from the chair. Hey, I want to thank Molly Evans for all her hard work she done on the board the last 5 years. Last March, this pandemic started, and we had a closed session, and I never forget what she said. She said, we need to continue on. We have to continue on. And we have done a good job on continuing on. And I appreciate her staying around instead of just resigning and say, I'm done. She going down to the bitter end, closed session and everything. But I want to thank her, especially for her leadership. She had a tough year last year, and it carried on to this year, but we got it done. And I appreciate her, and I'm going to miss her. Arlene, I've known you on this board about 15 years now, half of it. When I came on, you were very helpful. There's something I got to say besides you and Mr. Laredo. It's a lot of what they say institutional history going out the door. Because you have seen it all, you have heard it all, you've been in all the meetings where all the decisions were made, and you know how all the votes came out on dams, on desal and everything, and you have served many of the general managers. And you haven't walked out that door yet, but I'm glad to see you going to retire. I don't want you to retire, but you're going to retire because you told me I'm leaving. So we got another little offer for you, but I hope you hang around to fulfill at least 3 months of that to get the other person on board. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you again for all your help. You were somebody I could call and cry on. And you used to say that. I want to hear almost to cry on, but I appreciate all your help. All right, that's that. Our next item, General Manager's report.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to defer a couple of items. There was a question asked about fish rescues at the last meeting. We have some data to report. I'll bring that back next month. Also, as you will hear in this report, there's some continuing anomalies in customer demand. And we want to bring back a report on the most recent water year closing of customer demand or production for customer service. So we'll skip those, get right into the calendar compliance report. And by the way, Mr. Chair, I appreciate you identifying what we'll be doing in the future. We'll be, with your approvals, we'll be snatching away Arlene's immediate retirement fund and replacing with the short-term contract to mentor and train. So it'll happen eventually, Arlene, the fun part. So on the next page, you'll see something that is a little confusing, and that's that the targets, or the target for Carmel River Basin versus actual, is a little significantly out of whack after just 2 months. And the reason for that is this chart has been modified in the targets for the 1,000 acre-foot effective diversion limit reduction, which is the subject of agenda item 14. But John Lear can speak a little bit more to that in, I believe it's items 10 and 11 on the quarterly water budget. So it reflects the reduction in target, which makes the difference look more significant, but it will work itself out as the year progresses. Next chart, please. On the next chart, you can see in the third number column, Pure Water Monterey, we're currently tracking that production here. And so the company has taken or received 600 acre feet. A little bit of that was taken from the operating reserve and will be made up in another month. But the accounting for the years is looking pretty good. We once again see Sand City desal production a little bit off relative to the budget. So we'll be monitoring that one as well. On the next chart, this is the production for customer service intended to reflect customer demand. And what you can see is after just merely 2 months of the water year, we're 121 acre feet under last year. We also noted that last year's production for customer service was also below the prior year. So we've had this downward trend now for 6 or so years, which we thought had flattened out. So we're going to be doing some work on trying to separate in the data some of the COVID impacts. So you'll be able to see the difference between commercial and residential compared to a prior year that didn't have any shelter in place. So we'll be working on that. But it is notable that within just 2 months, especially without any real rain to speak of in October, November, that we're already below in terms of customer demand. So we'll be tracking that one as well. And then finally, rainfall, not finally, a couple of things to talk about. We are obviously still in a rain scarce situation. This data is only through the end of November, but if you turn the page to the rain gauge, you'll see that we have already had a little bit of rain in December. Just today, from midnight reporting to when this was pulled, there was 0.13 inches at the San Clemente gauge. So normally by the end of December, an average year is about 6 3/4 inches of rain, just under. We're now at just under 3/4 of an inch. So we need about 6 inches in December for this to begin to look normal. Here we are almost halfway through December. So everything you've been hearing about concern over it being statewide, perhaps a dry year, we will also be monitoring for the peninsula. And then unimpaired stream flow. The data is too early, but it's definitely related to the amount of rain that we've received. So the blue bars, which is the current year, are tracking quite a bit below the red bars, which are the long-term averages. And that concludes my report on compliance.
Questions from any board members on compliance? If no questions, GM, just one question. Is ASR ready to go?
Ready to go, but not ready to operate. We don't have the stream flow yet, so we haven't hit any of the data points that will allow us to inject.
Right. I just want to know, make sure that when that river starts flowing, we are ready to go. In the future, I used to hear, well, we got to do this and we got to do that. Yeah. I hope we are ready to go. All right. Any other questions? No questions? Okay. What's your next item, GM?
Yeah, next item is item 8. This one kind of speaks for itself. This is just an annual opportunity to see what the Legislative Advocacy Committee, in effect, authorized or interacted with. I think one of the key items is the very first letter in the packet, which is a letter from the Department of Interior to us as a co-partner with Monterey One Water. Cementing the deal that we've been awarded almost now a total of $19 million through the WIN Act Title 16 program administrated by the Bureau of Reclamation. You can also see a number of letters of support for both state and federal legislation, as well as some participation we did through some of the national organizations. But we'll let that speak for itself. Which brings us to the report from District Council.
Mr. Laredo.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members. Mr. Edwards, you're on mute.
Director Rowley, do you have any comments? Seeing your hand up.
I just wanted to compliment the legislative committee and the work that they've done. It seems like what effort they make and what trips they make and what contacts they make and what arguments they make on scene and on site is producing results. I just want to compliment the legislative activity this past couple of years, and Dave, your role in that too. So I just want to call attention to it. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Laredo.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I just want
Go
to,
ahead, Dad.
as the chair of the Ledge Committee, I do want to sort of ping on George's comments. If you look at the letters that are attached, it really does show the diversity of the tasks that we take on at the Ledge Committee, whether it's chasing money, whether it's advocating for legislation that's good, for legislation that's bad, state or federally. And then also the partnerships that we've had out there in other areas, other districts have similar issues. We've come forward and added our support. So we may not be the biggest district in the state, but we certainly are involved. I really appreciate staff's involvement, their dedication, and both the professionals we've hired at the state and federal level. It makes a difference. Unfortunately, we can't get out there as much as we used to be able to. Those personal one-on-one conversations, not confrontation, but conversations. And so, George, I do appreciate your understanding and your appreciation for how much time it takes to get out there and advocate for issues that matter.
Director Potter. Okay, Mr. Laredo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you, to members of the board, members of the staff, members of the public. Ordinarily, this is the opportunity that I would be reporting on the closed session that occurred earlier in the evening. Tonight, the closed session is the end of this meeting, and public comment will be taken on that item. There's only one item on the closed session, and that is the lawsuit that's been filed by Cal-Am. Before I mention that, I'd like Chairman's asked me also to comment on another action that's pending as well. This is just for general report, not for discussion. Cal-Am has its general rate case. This is the beginning of the cycle for a 3-year general rate case. Ordinarily, Cal-Am would have had an order by this time implementing the rate case, because the hearings would have been held earlier this year in 2020. Because of the pandemic and the delays of holding hearings by the PUC, we have not yet had evidentiary hearings in that matter. So the action is delayed for almost an entire year. At the moment, there's a possible evidentiary hearing dates for the end of January. It is possible that those dates will not be needed. There's a briefing schedule in February and March, and the proposed decision by the administrative law judge is not due to be issued until early June. And it is anticipated that the commission will not be entering its decision until September. It is over 9 months delayed from what it had originally been planned. But the Chairman Edwards asked me to provide an update on that to you. With respect to the item that is on your closed session tonight, that is the Cal-Am recently filed petition for writ of mandate. Cal-Am filed that in the Superior Court and is asserting that the district's effort to follow voter direction of Measure J is flawed because, according to the petition, the district did not take into consideration environmental impacts that would be caused by the public acquisition of the Monterey water system. As the next step of that acquisition effort is for the district to confirm with the LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, that the district does have authority to operate Cal-Am's water system. This board in November did certify an EIR based on the conclusion that the district will operate the water system in the same manner that Cal-Am currently does. Cal-Am now claims in this lawsuit that this sidesteps analysis of environmental impact. And the court is asked by Cal-Am to set aside the district certification of the EIR, and that the court also award Cal-Am attorney's fees. We will be going into closed session to discuss this, to get direction from the board. But I believe that this responds to the chairman's request, and which Michael Bear in public comment also asked for an update. So thank you to both of you for the opportunity. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Laredo.
Chair,
Okay, I guess,
Chair,
any questions? Go ahead.
I do have a question of our attorney, Mr. Laredo. If you could clarify one point that you made, that was for information only on the general rate case. If the approval of the general rate case comes out a year after it was originally intended to be implemented, if there is an increase in rate in that, would that, do you know, first of all, would that be implemented in after the fact? Or how would that delay in approval of the new rates affect the time that they were not in effect, if that makes sense?
That does make perfect sense. It's all conjecture. Cal-Am's position should be that, but for the delay imposed by the PUC, it would have begun to turn on its proposed rates effective January 1. So I anticipate that Cal-Am will be asking for a surcharge to collect the amounts that were foregone. The Public Utilities Commission does not allow retroactive rate making, so it is open-ended as to how the commission would rule on that. But certainly we can anticipate that Cal-Am will be asked to be made whole and not be harmed by reason of the delay. I am certain the Public Advocate's Office and others will have a contrary perspective, and ultimately the ALJ will make a proposed decision and the commission will be ruling on that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Director Paul, you have a question for the attorney?
I do. After our closed session discussion, is there can we make some sort of statement to the public about what we discussed? Any information we can provide to the public about that?
We will be discussing in closed session what information should be released. Public statements can be made both through the minutes of the meeting, a statement after the meeting, and certainly a statement before the beginning of the next board meeting. But we'll be discussing what is releasable in closed session, and then we will be able to implement that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Director Paul, the District Council will be able to report out during his report at the next board meeting what happened at closed session rather than a separate report immediately after this closed session. And you should also know that the writ has also been put in the hands of most of the local press at this point. So you'll learn more about what the claims are, I would imagine, through that as well.
Okay, any other questions for the attorney? Okay, moving along. Okay, we on the director's report, including the AB 1, 2, 3, 4, reports on trips, conferences, attendance, and meeting. Any comments from board members? Go ahead, Director Adams.
Thank you. I do not have any AB 1234 reports, but I just did want to say, since we're talking about meetings, at last week's Board of Supervisors meeting, we began considering amendments to the county's well ordinance. And while these issues primarily come from the Salinas Valley, I feel like it's a countywide ordinance, and so it could impact new and replacement wells over here within the peninsula area. We're going to be having a workshop on it sometime early in 2021, and my office will be able to provide information should people be interested in learning more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rowley.
I'd like to report on the Water Master meetings. There have been several meetings. During COVID, we've been meeting about every other month. The Water Master has gotten particularly active in promoting the desal project before the Coastal Commission. I feel like there's some arguments they're making that I'm not comfortable with. And I just want to point out two things that I'm pursuing with the Water Master group. One is where is their authority for promoting. I thought they were kind of a ministerial agency and not an administrative or policy agency. And I'm just trying to clarify where they may draw a line about advocacy as opposed to just ministerial activity. That's point number one. Point number two is that they want to protect the basin, and I understand that and I support that. And I think the district all supports that too. But it seems like they're accounting for how they want to replenish the basin takes money. And my personal opinion is that they have a invalid accounting system for what they are presenting to the public. And so I've raised questions about rethinking the accounting system. I have some arguments I want to make, and I don't need to make them here, but what I want to just mainly point out is I think the water master has a serious role to play about protecting the Seaside Basin. I think this district has a role to play also with the same priority. But I have this feeling that the water master is going down a political role direction and not a policy direction, and that's what I want to call attention to. I just want to let the district know that there's some tension there in where the water master seems to be going. I'll probably be discussing this far more often with Dave and maybe Dave Laredo as well going forward. And Alvin, I want to keep you informed too, as well as the rest of the board. But I just want to tell you that I'm finding some discomfort in some of the activities that are going on there. And I just want to share that with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rowley. Any other board comments? Okay, just some quick comments from me. In January 2021, we're going to move to Zoom. We'll be doing Zoom meetings in the future. So get prepared and I think our audience will feel better about it. The district, the general manager said it's easier to use. So we're going to move to Zoom in 2021. I want to thank Supervisor Adams and Director Adams for what she did on the resolutions to our leaving board members and employees. I appreciate that. I didn't get a chance to thank her on the last one. And the last thing I want to wish everybody from the district a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays from the board and staff of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. Hope you have happy holidays. All right. Our next item, we're getting into the public hearings. General Manager, how many people we have in the audience?
Yeah, we have about 20. Let me just see if that number's changed very much. Yeah, it's up to 28. Some are probably just here informationally.
So what we'll do 2 minutes. 2 minutes on the public hearings.
Great.
All right.
So this item 10 may be a little bit of deja vu because we did a similar action in September as we normally would at the end of a water year. As I mentioned earlier with the letter from the state that's part of exhibits in item 14, we are redoing the resolution modifying Rule 160, and John Lear will present.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Chair Edwards, members of the board. This is item 10, public hearing to consider adoption of the resolution modifying Rule 160 that sets the regulatory water production targets for the California American water systems. Next slide, please, Arlene. So Rule 160 exists in our rules, and it sets the regulatory targets that are used for what we call our expanded water conservation and standby rationing plan. And for the newer members, it sets month-end targets throughout the water year, to which if you are in exceedance of that, you will need to start implementing rationing measures in order to bring your production down so that you do not exceed the annual limits. So it's a way for us to check our progress, and is actually produces the number sets that Dave reports at each of these meetings, how we're doing along with that. Within Rule 160, there are tables 1, 2, and 3, which specifically set these year-to-date end-of-the-month production targets, and they are focused on what we call the Monterey Peninsula Water Resources System, which consists of the Carmel River Basin and the Seaside Groundwater Basin, and it also takes into account the Laguna Seca sub-area as a separate area that was set to have its own separate budget within the Seaside adjudication decision. And then the Rule 160 requires that any modification to these tables be made by board resolution. Next slide, please. So the constraints that exist on water year 2021 are the constraints set by the State Water Resources Control Board with the cease and desist order, commonly called, and the Seaside Basin adjudication amended decision that came down and became final February 9, 2007. In this water year, we have Pure Water Monterey came on at the late part of water year 2020. This water year we're in now, or moving forward into water year 2021. And according to the CDO, all water produced from these water projects will be used to meet a 1-to-1 write down of the effective diversion limit as outlined in the CDO. Next slide, please. These targets, when we talk about the amount of water, and as Dave had said, when we entered this water year, it was set at 8,310 by the CDO, but there are a number of milestones in the CDOs that, if they are missed, reduce the effective diversion limit by 1,000 acre feet per missed milestone. One milestone has been identified by the Water Resources Control Board as missed, thus making the total available for diversion off the river under the CDO for water year 2021, 7,310, again, 1,000 down from the 8,310. For the Seaside Basin, the coastal areas, the Seaside decision has gone through a number of 3-year, or what's called in the decision, triennial ramp downs of 10%, to reach Calian's limit for the coastal subareas of 1,474 of what we call native seaside groundwater. Putting those both together for water year 2021, there's 8,784 acre feet from both of those sources. Next slide, please, Eileen. So the way we do the math on to create these tables is we take the different water years and the different months of those water years, and we go through them and we average them out to take into account some changes in rate cases and variability in climate, and we get the bottom row, which is the percent of the resource that was consumed each of the months of the year. Next slide, please, Eileen. We go through and we take the targets and we get down to the 8,784, multiplying them all by the different percentages throughout the different months, and we get the total that can be consumed in that month from all sources. And the right hand column is a running total. So that is the total at that month that we should be under to not trigger rationing. So this is the table 1, which is the table for the entire resource system. And then next slide, please. This table is a remnant table, but it is still part of Rule 160. And Chair Edwards, this is the table you directed us to go back and clean up, and then the reduction happened and we have not cleaned it up in the month. So we are still understanding that was a direction we received from you. These are all zeros because the allotment for the Laguna Seca subarea has fallen all the way down to 0. So when you multiply the allotment of 0 by the percentages, they all come out to be 0. So again, a remnant table that will be cleaned up. Next slide, please. And then here is the Carmel Valley alluvial aquifer, which is the 7,310, and the representative breakdown by percentages and then cumulative month-end targets. Next slide, please. So it is staff recommendation that the board adopt the resolution to modify the regulatory water production targets for the CalAm systems for water year 2021 and direct staff to incorporate these tables into Rule 160 of the MPWD rules and regulations, and also to direct staff to file a notice of exemption for the CEQA compliance for this action at the Monterey County level. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any board questions at this time? No board questions? Okay, Arlene, let's take it out to the public for public comment.
I'm sorry, Director Edwards, I think George Riley has his hand up.
Okay, George, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to ask a couple of simple questions. Is there another ramp down milestone that could reduce the Carmel River by another 1,000 feet? Is there another milestone out there to be on our agenda, on their agenda?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So these are water year items. So the next milestone number 6 is September 30th of 2021 calendar year. And then as currently drafted and enacted, the cease and desist order has one additional ramp down to the legal limit after December 31st, 2021. So it's highly unlikely, given what's happened with the Coastal Commission schedule and the withdrawal and resubmitting of the permit application and the notice of incomplete, that the company will be able to catch up in time. So it's highly probable that we'll miss the September 30th milestone in next calendar year. But more importantly, as of right now, there's no changes afoot or being considered to the CDO. So it's really the legal limit of 3,376 acre feet per year of Carmel River pumping that would come into play after December 31st of next year.
And then my second question through the chair is the Seaside Basin Triennial ramp down. Where are we in that sequence?
Yeah, we are, so we're in the water year that affects the final ramp down. So 1474, a number you saw earlier, is the last triennial ramp down. And the goal, of course, is with a new permanent substitute water supply, that the company could take 700 of that 1474 and not pump it, thereby doing what we call in lieu recharge. By not pumping it, you hope you're replenishing the aquifer by an equal amount.
Other board questions before we open up to the public? Okay, Arlene, let's open it up to the public for 2 minutes, please.
If you have any comments, please use the raised hand icon or press *3 on your phone. Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Thank you, Arlene. We'll bring it back to the board for.
Arlene, can you look one more time, because my participant list showed one raised hand.
Yes, I will. I do see this.
Before, but that could be left.
Yes, now it could be. Mary Ann Coppernall, I see that your hand is still raised. Did you want to comment?
Oh, no, I thought I was remuted, but so no, I did not. Thank you for asking, Arlene.
Okay, if you can locate the little raised hands icon, if you could disable it, that would be great. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, excellent.
Chair, this is Director Evans. I move approval of this item, move approval of staff recommendation for this item.
We have approval by Director Evans, second.
Second.
By Director Potter. Comments on the question? If none, roll call vote, please.
Director Paul,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Edwards. Director Edwards,
Yes.
motion passes 7-0.
Motion passed 7-0. Thank you. Damn,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next
so,
item.
okay, so this next item, item 11, is also in John Muir's hands. December being the last month of the first quarter of the new water year. This is looking forward to the next quarter on adopting a quarterly water budget.
Thank you, Arlene.
You're welcome.
Okay, board members of the board, this is public hearing item 11. As Dave said, we will be talking about the months of January through March for 2021. Every 3 months we get together and look at all of the state board orders and the status of all of the different sources of water that are available through both the sources of water we set limits for at the last public hearing item, as well as water supply projects, and move forward with a plan to produce water for the community in a safe and environmentally responsible way. So next slide, please. So the state water resources control board orders are a number of them, starting with 9510 and progressing throughout the years. And these state board orders set a number of different limits and ways that the water is supposed to be produced out of the main system. And we must move forward as well as considering the Rule 160 targets when the group sits down, the quarterly water budget group, and we develop plans. So to speak to your earlier question, Chair, the ASR plan, we are within the time window for injection. However, streamflow requirements have not been reached, but we are in touch with the CalAm operations staff. Currently, ASR 1 is still being used to recover water to the system. However, we will be able to reverse flow and initiate flow injecting. As you remember from past years, we have to flush the system and get water quality as far as the particulates in the water down to a certain requirement, but we are ready to start moving and moving through those startup routines and watching the forecast and communicating and talking about stream flow. So we won't let you down this year. Table 13 is also within the same operational window as the ASR, so it is not available to be diverted unless we meet in-stream flow requirements, and we are still in a holding pattern with that. But what we have done is looked at what would be a normal water year if we were to start receiving rain, as David stated earlier, and move into 6 or 9 inch December, triggering these in-stream flow requirements, allowing us to start moving in and producing water from these alternative sources. The Pure Water Monterey project will continue throughout the winter, but will recover water at a reduced rate. It is necessary to maximize ASR to run some wells in Seaside and meet demand in Seaside. So the Seaside demand largely will be used or met by the Pure Water Monterey recoveries. So next slide, please. We will assume full utilization of all Seaside sub areas during water year 2021. We will assume ASR injection in table 13 continues through the quarter. If this once we get maintain the flows in the Carmel River above threshold values once we reach that value. And we actually developed this on December 4th, 2020 by the Quarterly Water Budget Group that consists of MPWMD, California American Water, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, State Fish and Wildlife Services, National Marine Fisheries Service, and the State Water Resources Control Board. So the next slide, please. This is a climate prediction center slide for the January through March 2021 precipitation. In our area, we are seeing an anomaly, which is saying predicting a drier than average conditions for the next 3 months. So we will watch and hope that this is not exactly what comes true, but based on the climate prediction, this is what we're bearing in mind. So next slide, please. This is the numbers that the board has just changed through adopting the resolution. So we have the reduced numbers for the entire system by the 1,000 acre feet, and we focus in on the January, February, March months. So that's this quarter that we're looking at. So next slide, please. This is the table that goes through and assigns production by source and then use by source. And so what we have is the Carmel Valley Aquifer will be produced at low rates in the 300s and then up into the low 400s in these months to meet customer demand. We put placeholder numbers in the ASR diversion row of this to remind us to keep the wells ready, have them tested, be ready to turn them on to harvest the water. And in a normal water year, if we were to return to an average water year, these are the types of numbers we would expect to see because based on the historic climate record, and as well as table 13. So that all comprises of 658, 691, and 468 for January through March out of the Carmel River to serve customer demand and to supply water to the water supply projects and the water rights. The Seaside Basin will produce at about 100 acre feet a month through these 3 months of native seaside water and will produce about 150 acre feet a month of pure water Monterey recovery, totaling in the near 300 acre feet per each of the months. And that totals down. All at the bottom is collected is 933, 966, and 10,038. And you can see underneath that, the way this table flows is you can see what component of that is to meet customer demand and what component of that is forecast to meet the water projects. And then we use this to forecast and make sure which wells and which sources and which parts of the system will need to be working to make our plan work. So next slide, please. This is also the disclaimer that as long as the table that exists in Rule 160, a water budget will need to be developed for the Laguna Seca sub-area. The Quarterly Water Budget Group has decided that this is not something that we really agendize anymore because there's nothing that can be done about it, and CalAm is in the process of building interties that will supply the Laguna Seca sub-area and will bring the production down to zero. Next slide, please. So the recommendation of this would be to adopt the proposed water supply strategy for the main system and the Laguna Seca system for the second quarter of the water year 2021, the January through March 2021 period. And that concludes my presentation, Chair.
Thank you. Good report. Any board questions at this time? Director Rowley, go ahead.
John, just a quick question on the stream flow requirements. Are they the same for ASR as well as Title 13?
Title, yes and no. Permit 2808A has a series of in-stream flow requirements that are different. Permit 2808C has the exact same in-stream flow requirements as Table 13.
To be understood later for me.
I have a chart that I can give you.
Questions? Okay, John, a question from me. When you're talking about pure water recovery, I know it's not supposed to get to my tap for 6 months. So what do you mean by that?
It's that's a great point. It means the tracking of the water that's in storage and the recovering of it, the physical water that is injected for Pure Water Monterey has only started to be seen in the far field monitor wells, which are about halfway between the injection wells and the ASR wells. So it is not being produced, and any of those molecules are not being produced and put into the system. It is purely tracking of the water on an accounting basis. So thank you for that clarification.
For the clarification. Okay, any other board questions? If none, Arlene, could you open it up to the public for 2 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no raised hands.
Yeah, Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
All right, thank you, Arlene. To the board for questions, motions, second.
I move approval of the resolution.
Okay, we have Movo from Director Rowley. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second
Supervisor
by
Adams.
Director Adams. Okay, any comments on the question?
Yeah, point of clarification. This
Yes.
item does not have a resolution. The last item had the resolution, so this is just adoption of the plan, if you will.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll move along. All roll call vote, please.
Director Anderson,
Yes,
thank you.
we'll get faster.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Yes,
Motion passes 7-0.
motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item, GM.
Yes, so item 12 is an action item, as will most of the remaining items that we talk about. Suresh Prasad, our CFO, will be presenting. And we do have representatives of the district's auditors, Hayashi and Whalen, here. I just want to point out that when you get to the recommendation, which is to receive the report, I would modify the recommendation with a caveat that there may be minor non-substantive modifications to language in the report. I think Attorney Laredo issued his letter on Friday or over the weekend, and I had my conversation with the auditor. In fact, I think General Counsel had his conversation with the auditor on Friday. And we've seen just a couple of sentences here and there that could use some elaboration. One example would be the contingent liabilities related to Measure J costs. You can predict there will be costs, but you can't estimate what those costs will be. And we just want to make that clear. Go ahead, Suresh.
Thank you, Dave. And by the way, for the comfort of the board, we will have that language in probably by tomorrow or day after. So this is the annual item to receive the fiscal year comprehensive annual financial report, or always also referred to as the annual audit report. So we'll be doing 2 sets of presentations. I'll take the board through the financial numbers itself, then I'll turn it over to the auditors. There's 3 representatives from Hayashi Whalen, the auditing group, and they will talk about the board disclosure letter, as well as the audit process, and be happy to answer any questions. The actual audit is included in the board packet. It's on from pages 129 to page 222. And the required annual board disclosure letter from the auditors directly to the board, that's on pages 223 to 230.
So you'll also see some terms, some terminologies in the annual financial report. One of them is GASB. GASB was established in 1984, and they are actually the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is basically the organization that sets and establishes the accounting standards for governmental agencies like ourselves. They all follow in line with the generally accepted accounting principle, or commonly referred as GAAP. So we have to comply with all of the GASB standards, and there are a ton of GASB standards out there. They always routinely keep pushing out new ones. And in the audit presentation, you'll see that there are also some new GASB standards that have been published that will come about another year to two for us to comply with. CAFR, as I mentioned, CAFR is basically also called Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's a set of governmental financial statements, and that comprises the financial report of a municipality, governmental agency. And we also want to make sure that the accounting requirements within the CAFR are basically followed in accordance with the GASB standards. So GASB provides the standards for the content on how a CAFR is supposed to be compiled. So you'll see there's separate sections, and I'll go over that in just brief slides here. But basically, the way that they are stacked, how they are supposed to be categorized, it's all basically based on standards. So CAFR is compiled by government accounting staff, and then the auditors basically audit, and the certified accounting firm, and they also use the GASB requirements when they are basically auditing the financial statements. CAFR composed of three main sections: introductory, financial, and statistical sections. And in blue here, you'll see the introductory section, which is on pages Roman numeral from I to X. That includes the letter of transmittal, the CAFR award letter, and then also governmental structure. And what the CAFR award letter is basically, after the compilation of the CAFR, what we do is we send it out to Governmental Finance Officers Organization. It's a GFOA organization for US and Canada. And they basically look at the CAFR material, and they decide whether it's worthy of an award or not. And for the last 5 years, we've been getting award for that. So that's that section. The financial section, it's on the actual CAFR pages 1 through 52, and that will entail the auditor's opinion. It's also has the management discussion analysis, sometimes referred to as MD&A, and then also has the basic financial statements, your statement of net position, balance sheets, and cash flow statements, and also includes notes as well. And the statistical section is actually from pages 53 to pages 74. So that's the actual CAFR report that was sent as an attachment, and those are sections that were within the CAFR. So our financial statements have been audited by Hayashi Willen. They are licensed certified public accountant. The auditors issued an unmodified clean opinion, and unmodified opinion is the highest in the hierarchy of opinions. So there was no material findings or anything wrong with the district's financial statements, and they were presented in conformity with the GAAP, or the general accepted accounting principles. No matters involving internal control over financial reporting that were considered to be material weaknesses, and the auditors will speak more to that. There were no instances of non-compliance or reportable conditions that are to be reported under the governmental accounting standards, auditing standards. And then, as I mentioned, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is the 5th year that we've got for 2019. The year that we are working on right now is going to be a 6th year that we're going to apply for the award. We don't know if we're going to get it, but we feel very strongly that everything presented in the CAFR, the way it is, that we feel very confident that we should be getting that award for the 6th year. Statement of net position, all of these numbers that I'm be showing in a very summary form. The detailed version of this is basically listed at the bottom of the slide. You'll see this one says CAFR page 12. So if you were to look at page 12 of the CAFR, you'll see the statement of net position. We are comparing here two different sections here, the governmental activities, which is basically the district's numbers. The business type activities are related to the Pebble Beach Reclamation Project. That's the partnership that we have with the Carmel Area Wastewater District, the Pebble Beach Company, and between the district. That is the business type activity that we have, where we basically have a partnership agreement, where the water sales gets reported by the district and then transfer the money over to Claude, who does the operations and maintenance of the facility. But because the way the financing structure was created, we have to report the entity, the reclamation project, on our financial statement as a component unit. So this would be the only slide that I'll show those two numbers, but you'll see governmental activity total assets for the year ending June 30th, 20 was a little over $23 million. On the business type activity, 42. Total net asset was a little over $75 million. Deferred outflows, these are pension and OPEB related entries. And then total liabilities, you'll see a little over $17 million for us, a little over $10 million for the reclamation project. Total liabilities, the year ending was $27 million. And then deferred inflows, district side, and that's again basically pension and OPEB related journal entries. So total net position as of June 30th, 2020 for the district was $17 million. On the reclamation project was a little shy of $31.9 million. Total net position was $49 million for both entities reported. On the governmental fund side, basically we don't, on the governmental side, we only report district activities. We don't report the Pebble Beach Reclamation. Pebble Beach Reclamation Project only gets reported under the government-wide financial statements. So on the balance sheet for the district itself, I'm comparing here 2020 to 2019. You'll see total assets was $21 million as compared to last fiscal year, 2019. Total liabilities was $3.2 million compared to the 2019 at $800,000. Deferred inflows, $147,000, very close to $134 for last fiscal year. All in all, our total fund balance stood at a little over $18 million compared to 2019, which was over $17 million. And again, I'm listing the CAFR page number, which is page 14, and that basically will give you a detailed version of what I'm showing you in a very summary form. On the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance, you'll see total revenues compared 2020 to 2019, very close compared to last fiscal year. Some major change here on expenses. It was 11.3 on 2019 and a little over $13 million. We had a very heavy capital year in 2020, and most of those projects were still carried forward, deferred over into 2021. So you'll see when I do a comparison on budget to actual, you'll see quite a substantial change. Net change in fund balance for the current year, 2020, is a little over $1 million compared to about 2.9 for 2019. And then the ending year fund balance was a little over $18 million. So, and that basically just is a difference between 2019 and 2020. The difference is the net change in fund balance for the current year. So a little over $1 million. And again, this is on page 15 of the actual CAFR. Just like to show the district revenues itself, throwing them on a chart. You'll see the water supply charge, the maroon color, and then green on the user fee, and the blue bar on property tax. This basically gives an indication in percentages of how district revenues are comprised of the different individual components and what percentage they are of the district's total revenues. Also doing the same thing on the expenditures itself, just putting them in a graph form, and you'll see that in 2020, most of the expenses did go towards the project expenses, and then personnel, and then operating in some of the other small categories. Here we're looking at the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. And here we are comparing budget to X. So as you can see, the total revenues, our budgeted number was 13.5. It came up a little higher than that, 14.1. Our user fee revenues were the main contributing factor there, why it ended up being a little higher than budgeted numbers. As you can see, total expenses for the year was estimated to be 20.4. And we ended up, actual was a little over $13 million. So you can see there's a quite significant difference. And the difference there was because, as I had mentioned, 2020, even though it was a heavy capital year, there were still some major capital projects that were carried over from 2020 to 2021. So you will see that some of those numbers that we did not materialize in 2020, they will actually get used up in 2021. So our net change in fund balance budgeted was, we were showing a deficit of close to $7 million, and that basically was saying that we were going to use the money from the fund balance. The actually yielded a little over $1 million on the change in fund balances. And so beginning fund balance at 17, we had estimated with our budget that we were going to close the year with a fund balance of a little over $10 million, but because most of those projects did not get built or did not get spent on, our ending fund year balance actually ended up being $18 million, so a little higher than, or about $7 million higher than what we had anticipated. And again, all of these budget numbers to actual numbers, the comparison you'll see in the actual CAFRA on pages 53, 54, and 55. Oops, the arrow's coming a little later. We also like to report on the pension and OPEB liabilities, and there is going to be a full detailed report to the board in January. Our beginning of year on the pension was 5.1. There were change in obligation, and the change in obligations, change in assumptions, change in how the market did, and also change in any changes that PERS does. So all of those gets contributed, wrapped up into that change in obligation number. And so that change was $445,000 for the current year. So end of the year, our total pension obligation was little over 5.5. On the other post-employment benefits, this is the medical benefit that the district provides to its employees. The beginning of the year was $4.5 million. The change in obligation was actually a reduction of $425, and most of the changes were attributed to our demographic data for employees. There were some employees that had quit. There were some employees that did not take the medical benefit upon retirement. So basically all of those, when it got factored in, there was a significant drop in the assumption. And so our end of year OPEB balance stood at $4.1 million. And so on the far right column, you'll see the total was 9.6, change in assumption, slight change, 20,000. And so our total obligation at the end of the year, as of June 30th, 2020, stands at $9.6 million. And again, worth to mention again that there will be a full detailed report on both pension and the other post-employment benefit in January. So we bring that every year to the board for board's information. So the recommendation would be for the board to receive the 1920 comprehensive annual financial report for the year. And before that, what I'd like to do is have the auditors also give their presentation, and then we'll go into questions. So with that, I'd like to, we have Michael Briley from Hayashi & Will, we have Ray Galati from Hayashi & Will, and we also have Emelisa Santiago from Hayashi & Will. And so I think Ray will be doing the presentation. I'll leave you on unmute, Ray.
Yes, I believe I'm unmuted, correct?
Yes, thanks, Ray.
Okay. So great. Suresh did a great job at summarizing the financial results. So they get any of the numbers unless you have questions after. You can go ahead and advance the slide. Suresh also summarized this as well, that our audit objective when we perform an audit is to decide whether or not your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And we're glad to say that you've got an unmodified opinion, or a clean opinion is the old terminology. So there weren't any major adjustments that needed to be made to the audit. So that's the highest level of service that you can receive and the highest level of an opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. In advance. So one of the things that we're required to do is just give some board communications. It's formalized in a letter that is also part of your board packet. And so I don't want to, like I said, we don't have to read the letter, so we'll just go through these real quick. But we're just required to disclose what your significant accounting policies are, and those are in the financial statements. Whether or not there were any recent accounting pronouncements that you implemented in the current year. There's really just one that was an extension of the implementation date on other standards. We didn't encounter any significant or unusual transactions for which we didn't have guidance on how to treat. Your accounting estimates are reasonable. And really the big thing on here is the audit adjustments. We're just required to disclose to you the difference between what you would have received on internal financial statements and on the audited financials. And this year there was one large journal entry, so it increased your net position by $1,005,000, and that really had to do with the advance that you gave to the reclamation project. So because of the fact that we're reporting both the project and your governmental activities, we have to treat those as inter-fund transactions, and so we have to eliminate them on the government-wide. That might be a bit confusing, but what it did was it took it $1 million out of project expenditure and moved it up as to a receivable on the governmental activities. Then, like Suresh showed, the GASB items for the net pension and the OPEB, that had a $666,000 net increase, or decreased your net position for the changes in those items. We didn't have any uncorrected misstatements. We're required to disclose that we didn't have any disagreements with management or have to reach out to other consultants. No issues discussed prior to our retention, and no significant difficulties in performing the audit. So even with COVID, we actually were able to, with the systems you have in place, with Zoom meetings, with having items in DocuWare, we were able to get all of the required support that we needed for the numbers and didn't have any trouble with that. And then the thing that's really good to report is, again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were identified in your internal controls. And I think that a part of the Tyler system with DocuWare enables you to do that because you have checks and balances and that were already there in place. So COVID didn't have as much of an impact, I don't think, on your operations as maybe some other entities that weren't quite paperless. So again, just then that resulted in that we don't have any current year recommendations for improvements in internal control. And if there had been any prior year recommendations, those have all been addressed. Next. I'm not going to read each of these. These are the required accounting standards that GASB has issued that may impact the district in the future. To be honest, the only one that I can see offhand is the GASB 87 for leases, and that won't be effective. Lights went off. Won't be implemented until your year ended June of 2022, unless you choose to early adopt it next year. I don't think they'll have too big of a significant impact. You don't have that many leases compared to some entities. And the rest probably won't have an impact on the district. I think that's it. If you go to the next slide, it's probably questions. Oh, just this was mentioned, we're waiting on one attorney letter before we can finalize the audit. And then Suresh will send in a formal application to the GFOA for the CAFR award. And then we will follow up in January with getting the state controller's report filed. So those are really the only open deliverables that we have at this point. And that's, I think at this point, we'll open it up for any questions for either Suresh or the audit team.
Any board questions?
I have a couple.
Okay, go ahead. Is that correct?
What was, you may have said, Suresh may have said this, but what was the big project expenditure that was carried over to next year? I think I missed that.
Yeah, so Director Paul, we had two of them, two major ones. One of them was the Asr Treatment Facility, which was about a $5.6 million project. and about little over $2 million were expended in fiscal year ending 2020. The remainder portion of it, as the facility is still being built, it was going to be recorded in fiscal year 21. The other major one was the reserve water purchase of Pure Water Monterey, reserve water for in accordance with the agreement. And so probably less than half of that were purchased in fiscal year 2020. The remainder of it got purchased into fiscal year 21. We just finished purchasing, I think last month was September.
I see. Thank you. My other question has to do with the discussion of Measure J in at least two places in the report. There's a statement that I don't quite understand. It says it's about the feasibility study under Measure J. It says the board voted in December 2019 to approve the second phase of the feasibility to be completed in July 2020. What does that refer to?
That's the second part of the feasibility study that is still ongoing, and I believe that's now going to be completed by next March, I believe. Dave, you want to chime in on that one, what the completion date is?
Yeah, it all really depends on our LAFCO application, which we keep modifying and keep modifying. Still trying to get it in here in mid-December before the holiday. And once that application's in, LAFCO, the local agency formation commission, will have time to look at it and give us a sense of what their calendar might be. But it could be, it could take us to May, even June. And so if it's the direction of this board to make a bona fide offer to purchase the CalAm assets, then the appraisal document will have to be finished at that time. It's substantially complete at this time. And then to go to that step, there will be a series of legal findings that will accompany the decision of our board. And so some of the legal work will be completed at that time. So we're actually now into a third fiscal year with some of those original costs. Financial feasibility was proven out and demonstrated at the November 2019 public workshop and report that was produced by Raftellus and the investment banking firm of Barclays. So this is all that series of second phase work that's part COVID, part things we learned, part lawsuits, part everything is finding itself flowing into the calendar year next year.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Director. Any other board questions? Any other board questions? Okay, I see no hands.
I do have one. I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist this.
That's all right, Director Adams.
Thank you. So I know that it may not be a big deal to a lot of different entities, but the big adjusted journal entry, the $1 million journal entry,
Yes.
is that uncommon for an organization our size? And does it draw any particular kind of attention or any sort of, does it convey any kind of message or anything that we should be conscious of?
No, and really the journal entries are just for board disclosure purposes. So that you know what the difference was between internal financials and the ones that we're producing for the audit. To be honest, Suresh consulted with me back when this first was going to happen, and we had felt that it was going to be booked as a expenditure, similar to all of your other reimbursable type projects. And it wasn't until we received the reclamation project's audited financials where they treated it as a loan. And so we needed to kind of make it even, right? A loan on one side needs to be a receivable on the other. So that's why the adjustment was made. But the district had reached out for guidance on the treatment of that prior, and we thought that it was correct. And then like I said, in retrospect, once we received it, realized that there is a payment term over 2 years, we looked at it as a receivable.
Thank you so much for explaining it to me. Thank you.
Any other board questions? No other board questions? Arlene, could we please open it up to the public for 2 minutes?
Yeah, there really aren't any raised hands.
I see 2 raised hands. I just want to get my timer up.
All
Oh,
right.
excuse me, this is going to take me just a moment.
You've got raised hands.
Yeah, I need to take control of the. Okay. All right. I apologize for the delay here.
That's all right.
All right. John Pilley, please present your comment.
My first comment, Arlene, is thank you very much for your service. You are awesome. It's been great working with you over the years, and I thank you very much for your service. Next, I'd like to ask of both Suresh and Dave to outline the dollar amount for the contingent liabilities related to Measure J, and also a timeline related to those measurements requirements. You've plotted out a path for Measure J, and I think it's very fair for the community to know exactly what the costs and the timeline are for those contingent liabilities. Thank you.
Michael Baer, please present your comment.
Yeah, Arlene, kudos. I did not get a chance to say thank you, Arlene, for all your service. So we've had a little bit of contact, not a lot, but you've always been very professional and very kind at the same time. So thank you. It's been great to know you. I noted that the auditor said, that essentially you achieved the highest rating possible. And I've been following the work of the board here for 3 or 4 years. And whenever it comes to accounting, it is always the highest rating possible. I know that you guys have won awards statewide for your accounting, public agency accounting. And so I just want to, say kudos to Suresh. Obviously, he's the big engine behind that. And just to point out, when you get to court, because I imagine that might happen, remember that, has anybody done any auditing of CalAm and who's responsible for that? The CPUC. And so just the contrast between what's going on here and the sunshine that you guys are showing on your accounting versus the alternative. And I think that's Mr. Laredo, make a note that that's part of the argument when you get to court. Thank you.
Caller, please present your comment.
Oh, I just wanted to commend you on the spectacular achievement of achieving this award for excellence, financial excellence, for 5 years, and hopefully get it again for a 6th year. So it really gives much credit to the hard work and wonderful job that all of you are doing and working as a team effort to keep on top of all of these complex issues that you have to follow every single day. So thank you so much. And like everyone else is saying, Arlene, you're very much loved and appreciated, and we all wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Schiavone, please present your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Arlene, again, thank you. You are irreplaceable. And you are the institution in many ways. So I just want to tell you how much everybody appreciates you, and I have as well. I just wanted to also thank you all for your level of excellence, congratulate you again on your award, and add to Michael's comments that I also know you got an award for public transparency. This is a board and an organization that should be very proud to be a public agency, and I'm very proud of you as public servants. So thank you very much.
You.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you, Arlene. Back to the board. Motions, comments?
Chair, this is Director Evans. I have a few comments.
Okay, go ahead, Director Evans.
Thank you. I'd like to applaud and echo a lot of the comments we've just heard. I'd like to applaud our financial team, both the auditor and Suresh and our other internal staff. I've been on the board 5 years and we've received this award 5 years. I'm not saying that I'm the cause. I'm just saying it's nice that my time on the board has been with those awards for Suresh's hard work and all of the his good bookkeeping. And I'm just really impressed with that. And I want to thank him and his team for all of the work, and the auditors, because they did take a lot of time with me a few years ago to go through a lot of this in detail. And I appreciate them taking the time to explain a lot of this. And that has always been very helpful to me. So I just want to say thank you and great work.
Director Evans. Director Riley, you have your mic open.
Yes. Congratulations again on the achievement award on the accounting quality. I have two quick comments. One is I support Michael Bear's comment that we should keep in mind as we go forward the difference between the accounting quality of the district as it presents its case going forward. In any case, the second is I have a question about the drought reserve that's now deposited into the Seaside groundwater basin. Does that appreciate over time? How is that treated as an asset?
Yeah, it's a great question. We elected not to treat it as an asset on the balance sheet, rather as an expense on the income statement when it was.
No, Dave. No, it's treated as an asset on the books.
Oh, we did decide to do that.
Yes.
My bad.
Yeah, I mean, we had to go around like 4 or 5 different avenues, and then also checked with the auditors as well. And at the end, it was decided that yes, it can be treated as an asset. However, it doesn't appreciate. The only difference is we bought the water at a cheaper rate. If we do sell it at a later date, that's going to go out at the cost of the then selling amount. So you can say not profit, but it's going to be higher than what we've bought it for.
And what would happen is our obligation is to then replenish it. So we'd be replenishing it at an even higher rate as well. So you're kind of chasing inflation. But yeah, I'm sorry I misspoke. It was our preference all along to hold it as an asset because it's going to be a couple million by the time it's over. We've got a 3-year obligation to add more to it.
Does this require more discussion, or should there be more discussion on how to treat it as an asset? Because assets appreciate everything that you have. I mean, also they depreciate, but water is going to be an appreciating asset.
Yeah, not all assets do depreciate, Director Riley. For example, if you take like land doesn't depreciate. That's a good example of assets. So basically, the answer we got at the end of the day was, yes, it is an asset being held in the ground. And so basically, it's just like, water rights. But water rights do amortize, and in this case, the water itself, unless that water is not going to be there in the ground at a later date. But in our case, in that 1,000-acre foot that we put in the ground is always going to be available to be drawn upon.
But we appreciate the comment.
Director Paul, you had your hand up.
Yes, I first want to thank the callers, the members of the public who are paying attention. It's good. It's really good that members of the public are paying attention because as a public agency, well, first of all, I am so impressed that the district is doing such a good job of keeping its own house in order and doing such a good job at this work. It's important. I think that public agency set a good example and have its own house in order. It's very important. And for contrast, if you have time, take a look at some of the state auditors' reports on state agencies that did not do such a good job, and that causes a lot of problems. So I'm really proud to be associated with a district that is doing an exemplary job in its financial accounting. So I hope the staff deserves recognition for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board questions or comments? Go ahead, Director Adams.
Thank you. I just want to pile on more kudos to Suresh and to the team. I really appreciate the fact that you never make me feel like there's any stupid question, and that you do such a great job of demystifying the entire accounting process. So I really do appreciate the work that you do, and I just wanted to let you know that way. So thank you.
And my comments are good job, Suresh, and good job to our auditors. One thing that I learned that one morning, well, last Thursday, I got an email, and it was from the auditors. I said, I never got an email from an auditor before. So what's wrong? So they called me and let me know and went over some things. And I'm glad we're getting our house in order so we can get another award. But I want to thank the auditors for the phone call, Ray and Mike. I appreciate that. And they even asked me about lawsuits, and I told them, and they picked it up pretty good, that Cal-Am won. So I'm glad they with the board and our council and our general manager. Any more comments? If not, take a motion. Oh, Director Anderson.
Yeah, I'll pile on another layer of being new here. I'm again, just so impressed with the organization, the clarity with which things are being presented. It's really, as somebody just said, having your house in order. And wow, I've been involved with other organizations, and this is a real tribute to you all as a board and as staff for this organization. Great work.
Director Anderson. Now, can we have that motion and second? I think Director Potter is trying to make the motion, but you're on mute.
I'm not going to make the motion.
Oh, unprofessional of me. I move we go ahead and receive the report with the minor modifications mentioned earlier.
Okay, Director Adams?
I'll second that.
Thank you, because I seen him talking, but he had the mic on. All right, we have a motion by Director Potter and second by Director Adams. Comments been made? Roll call vote, please.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Paul? Director Paul? Well, Director Paul?
Okay, I'm going to unmute you, Director Paul.
I keep unmuting myself, but it mutes me again. I said aye.
Thank you. Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Potter?
Aye.
And Director Edwards?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item, GM.
Yeah, yes. And also for a new director, sometimes when you may be a little slow getting to your mute button. Arlene will be trying to unmute you right about the time you hit the mute button yourself. And so it's a little back and forth. So we'll get used to that. And on that last item, perhaps that is why Director Anderson slept so well on Saturday, because she used it as a sleep aid. This is only several hundred pages, but what I would request right now, Mr. Chair, is a motion to move item 16 up in front of item 13. I've received a text that the staff presenter, Stephanie Locke, has to be on a board meeting call at 7:30. A different board.
Go ahead there, Jim. You can make that move.
Do we need a motion to do so, or should we just do it?
I'll make the motion if it helps.
It helps.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second by Director Rowley. Roll call vote, please.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, motion passed 7-0. Okay, let's move it. Item 16, please.
Yep, we'll turn this over to Stephanie Locke.
All right, I'm not going to read the title of this because actually I'm looking at another thing right now, but this item is to request that the board authorize advance funding for the joint CalAm district rebate program. The joint rebate program is funded through a customer surcharge that's renewed as part of the CalAm general rate case every 3 years. We are currently at the conclusion of the last rate case, which ends on December 31st. As mentioned previously this evening, the decision on the 21-23 general rate case is anticipated sometime in mid-2021. So staff is requesting that the board authorize advanced funding in the amount of $200,000 from the General Reserve Fund to continue the program until CalAm's general rate case is approved and funds are available. CalAm has agreed to reimburse the district for the advanced rebates once collection of the conservation surcharge is resumed. Shutting down the program until funding is available would negatively impact both the community and our local vendors, and particularly at this time, I think we want to continue the momentum. There's a slight risk that rebate funding would not be approved in the next GRC, but all previous requests for funding have been approved since 2007. The district's and CalAm's rebate program is credited with a significant portion of the water savings since the cease and desist order in 2009. And for our new board members, the savings are reported monthly in the Water Conservation Program report and the informational items. The program offers extensive and generous rebates that motivate customers to voluntarily purchase and install water-efficient appliances. Given the urgency of conservation and the cease and desist order milestones, staff recommends the board authorize interim funding from the General Reserve Fund for up to $200,000 in CalAm rebates. This request was considered by both the administrative and water demand committees, and both committees unanimously recommended approval.
And I would like to add that this will be the third rate case in a row where we will have done this. And in the two most previous, reimbursement did occur. And we do have California Americans' commitment in writing via email from their president. So I think we've covered every potential issue.
Okay, board questions on this item. Go ahead, Director Paul.
I have no doubt that it's important to continue these rebate programs, which have been so successful. Just one question. Is there an interruption in CalAm collecting the conservation charge from ratepayers?
Yes, as they get to the end of their general rate case, they're not authorized to collect it after they've either collected the amount that they were authorized to begin with, and until the new rate case is approved. So I believe they just shut down the collection of the last general rate case conservation surcharge and it won't start up again until they have approval by the PUC.
I see. Thank you.
Any other board questions? If no other board questions, please open it up to the audience. 2 minutes, please.
Hands left up.
I see two speakers, but I just want to confirm. Mr. Tilley, did you want to speak on this item?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Michael Baer, please present your comment.
Yeah, to be short, no brainer. You got to do this. The rebate program is awesome. I just, I sing the praises for the rebate program whenever I can, and keep it going and keep your fingers crossed. Maybe Cal-Am will continue to pay you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you, Arlene. Oh, back to the board. Motions, seconds. Okay, Director Rowley.
I just want to ask maybe Stephanie or the GM. It's possible with the slowdown of the PUC actions or taking up issues, we may face this again as another extension come later this year, later next year. Is that a distinct possibility?
So I think at this point, the GRC should be approved hopefully by mid-year. And yes, if we have to come back again, this would be considered as part of your next year's budget process. It was not included in the budget for this year because we didn't anticipate this situation, as usual. But next year we would bring it forward if we don't see that it's going to be resolved in time.
Well, I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Director Paul. Any other comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead there, Director Evans.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree. The rebates have made a significant impact, and they continue to make significant impact year after year. And sometimes I think, gosh, haven't we rebated everything already? Because I look at the list in the board packet every month, and a lot of rebates go out, and I think, gosh, how much is left? But still, that people come forward with a new washer or some other appliance or a lawn or whatever, and I think we should be there for those folks. So I highly recommend it, and I'll be voting in favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Director Paul. You put yourself on mute.
I suspect one reason that the program is so successful is that it's being run by the district. That's it.
Oh, she's about to make many friends. Go ahead, Sarah. We're calling for the vote.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I think you were on mute.
That's louder than.
Director Potter?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Yes.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Edwards?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item, General Manager.
Yes, this is back to item 13. Consider approval of Amendment 4 to the cost sharing agreement with Monterey One Water, Pure Water Monterey Wells 3 and 4. Unlike previous cost sharing amendments, which identified certain cost areas and reiterated the 75-25 split. This reimbursement agreement or cost sharing agreement, in effect, has Monterey One Water paying for all of the costs of the third deep injection well, and Monterey Peninsula Water Management District paying all the costs of the fourth deep injection well, or DIW4. The project was originally envisioned and designed to have 4 sets of wells. During the course of the design process, it was contemplated and discussed that it could survive with only 2 well pairs. And shortly after initiation of operation, it became clear that that would be challenging and put us on a knife's edge. And so, in conjunction with Monterey One Water, our Water Supply Planning Committee, Administrative Committee, we've come to the point where we have approved doing the 4th deep injection well on our budget. We will pay for it out of our own cash on hand and discuss reimbursement opportunities later through the cost of water, or maybe choose not to put it into the cost of water. Nevertheless, the packages went out, were bid on. The budget for the 4th well did come within our approved budget from this board, the full board, which authorized $4.07 million in September. That includes a contingency of 10%. As I said, the budget came in under that with construction management. I don't have the figure for construction management readily available, but we do know that it's within budget. There's one aspect of this reimbursement or the cost sharing agreement amendment, which does put some onus on Monterey One Water to perform, and that if they fail to perform on their well, we can elect to cease any more expenditures on our well. The practical reality in that will be that mobilization on these 2 projects are sequential, and drilling is sequential, and completion is sequential. So it would either have to be a decision by Monterey One Water to stop before they start, because once they get started, we will be getting started shortly thereafter. Nevertheless, it's a protection that we did not have in previous cost sharing amendments. And with that, I would look for discussion.
Questions, board members?
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
So, Dave, you just mentioned that these projects are going to be done sequentially. Does that mean that once the drill rig has finished drilling DIW3, it just moves directly over to the 4th site and does that? And then whatever work is happening on 3, then those folks move over and do 4? Or do they finish 3 and then mobilize and do 4?
No, it should be the former, not the latter. That's my understanding. I think Maureen is on tonight if she hasn't.
That's your answer. Your answer is
Yeah.
sufficient.
Okay.
My question is, you say that we have some protection in case Monterey One Water fails to perform. So if they fail to perform somewhere in the middle, and then they, for whatever reason, decide to just can it, then that leaves us in the position of either canning a half-drilled well or moving forward on our own. Is that correct?
Exactly. We would have the option. So it's one of those where I suspect it'd be an intensive discussion about let's go ahead and finish the well and advance the project. As you know, this is not just for redundancy and operational flexibility, but we need to ensure that we, the Water Management District, do not breach the water purchase agreement by missing our water delivery guarantees.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other board questions? Director Anderson.
Is there a reason that you can think of that would cause them to stop that work? I mean, it's just as important to them as it is to everybody else.
That is correct. And the only learning along the way that we found was their failure to certify a supplemental EIR that we set off down a path together. So we wanted just a little more protection over spending money.
Okay. And secondly, those wells aren't physically connected. Is that right?
Well, the wells themselves are not physically connected, but the headworks are all physically connected. So there's an old blue line road that goes up the hill in that area. And these sites are kind of all four along that road and then connected to the electrical building, all four to the same building, and the piping to all four through the use of valves and everything could be, you can reconfigure which wells are putting water in the ground at what time.
Thank you.
Hey, General Manager, I learned this at the administrative committee meeting. You said those wells are in a easement, and who will own the wells? And who will have to perform the maintenance on the well once they completed? Let's get that out to the public.
Yeah. So the land is through easement. So no, as of now, not envisioned to be an ownership position. The well works, the head works, the casings in the ground, the electrical building, all of it will be owned by Monterey One Water, even our number 4 deep injection well as currently envisioned. And there's other things that we don't need to get too deeply into, but their SCADA system or their electronic data reporting system goes into their building up in North Marina. The water quality sampling obligation is kind of this is an oversimplification, kind of a dirty gloves, white gloves process. We do the dirty work and hand off the samples to their people for the laboratory white gloves work. So it's non-ownership, but it's a shared operations and partnership.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we take it to the public? If no other questions, Arlene, let's open it up to the public, please.
If you have any comments, please use your raised hand icon or press *3 on your phone. And I see a comment. Michael Baer, please present your comment.
Thank you. I'm still, after the discussion of the board, questions from Director Evans, I'm still not quite sure. So you got 3 and 4, and Monterey One pays for well 3, and you're saying well 4, and then I heard that it's like consecutive building. So if Monterey One were to get partially built and stop for whatever reason, it seems to me that the district wouldn't have begun yet. You're waiting for Monterey One to finish well 3 before you start well 4, essentially. And so the investment, would not be half in. That's one question. And then the second thing is just related to the Monterey One board. There's a specific individual who represents Delray Oaks. And, Delray Oaks is having their city council meeting tomorrow. They won't be deciding who sits on that seat, but they'll be having a special meeting in early January. So just to keep in mind, the configuration of the Monterey One board is still in flux until January. That's all.
All right, thank you.
Susan Scavone, please present your comment.
Hi, I just wanted to voice my support for whatever can be done to build all of the wells that were designed for this project as it should be built so that it is ready for expansion if that is something that's going to happen, and continue to try and work regionally with public agencies despite the divide and conquer attempts by CalAm to colonize the M1 board and to force separations of our unified actions to find a supply for water for this region. So yeah, I support this and I hope that it can work out and that M1 will fulfill their side of the bargain. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Tilley, please present your comment.
I would second Susan's comments about trying to make the Pure Water Monterey project work. And I would not suggest that it's an idea where it's a regionalization, but it's also just a purpose of choosing to recycle water to the best extent. Let's hope it works. I think chips are all in on this, and let's rain. Thank you.
Kelly.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you, Arlene. Back to the board. Motions, comments.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the amendment regarding the cost sharing agreement for Monterey One Water.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Potter and second by go ahead, Director Anderson, you got your hand up. Hit the mic.
Second.
And we got a second by Director Anderson. Just some quick comments from me on the second. I'm going to approve this. When I found out we weren't going to own the well, I shook my head. But I'm going to approve this because we need it. We need to do this and just show our partnership with them. I hope we can resolve our differences with that SEIR by us moving ahead. Want to make sure that these projects work. So I'm going to support it. Any more comments? If not, roll call vote.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Potter?
Aye.
And Director Edwards?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. Next item, JM.
Item 14, also an action item, is to consider a response to the State Water Resources Control Board in response to the reduction in the effective diversion limit as stated in their November 17th, 2020 letter to CalAm, which was also distributed to us and all the other jurisdictions. That letter was partially in response to an October 21st letter from CalAm to the state board. Both of those letters are included as exhibits A and B. And I was asked to draft a potential response, which I've included as exhibit 14C. I have received notice of some comments from Director Evans, some comments from Director Riley, and some comments from a member of the public. Both add some clarity to some murky language that I'm sure Director Evans' comments will probably help in that regard as well.
Okay, I guess we'll go over the comments in a little while.
Yeah.
So we can get the letter out. Any other board questions before I open it up to the public? Okay, Arlene, could you please open it up to the public?
Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Well, that's good. Any other board questions? Okay, just one board question to Mr. Laredo. My question is this: can we send this letter? It goes to the executive director, but can we send it to the chair of the board, or can we send it to the whole board if we do not get an answer this time around?
You could send it to the chair of the board. You could send it to all board members, or you could copy them on this if you wish. There's no restriction.
Thank you, sir. I feel we need to copy it because the last letter we sent, we didn't get any response. So if everybody knows what's going on, we might get an answer. Any other board questions? Do you want to go through those comments, General Manager?
And
yeah, well, so the member of the public was very, very clear, just a couple sentences, and I think that letter was forwarded to you this afternoon as correspondence received. Director Riley's, I think I understand his comment, but I was going to clarify with him tomorrow morning to make sure I'm in the right place. I think we're talking about the second to last large paragraph, but we will connect on that. And then Director Evans and I have not yet connected, so I don't know how she wants to proceed.
If we vote to approve this tonight, with the next, those changes in the letter, would they be sent out to the board and posted where the public can see whatever changes we made? Can we do that?
Yeah, I think that's quite doable.
Can we agree to make some clarifying edits and approve it subject to the clarifying edits that we can finalize tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? We took it to the public.
Yes. Excuse me.
One second. George Riley, you put your hand up. What you got?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. I just want to suggest a procedural change. Dave, this is directed to you specifically. I think when the agenda material is prepared and there's draft letters presented to the board, that if you show a signature on a draft letter, it's entirely possible it could be misused and not kind of treated like a draft letter. So I'm just going to suggest that you not sign the draft letters as we receive them in order to wait till the actions come. That's just a procedural question. The other thing I want to just say is that I think there's a penalty from the State Water Board that is a penalty, a monetary penalty against the provider, which is CalAm, and the assumption that the decision to implement the $1,000 loss, 1,000 acre feet loss, penalizes the consumer. The consumer had nothing to do with any of this. And I'm wondering if there's a way to add a paragraph or suggestion that the monetary penalty against the company ought to be a more appropriate penalty than penalizing the consumer. And I'm just raising the question to see if there's some suggestion on that. Some possibility on that.
And Dave Laredo may want to weigh in, but back in 2015, when an extension of the cease and desist order is being negotiated, we always had this concern about perverse incentives or perverse disincentives, because it does exactly that. It says, if the company fails to perform, we're going to go ahead and ratchet down the amount of water that they can serve, eventually to the point where you cannot serve. And so the penalty would be, ultimately, that the consumers and businesses would have to dial back their usage. And then that penalty, if violated, so if they chose to overpump to serve the customer, becomes a monetary penalty on the company that then gets passed into a memorandum account, ultimately rate-based, so back to the consumer. So the choices are pay the fines as a consumer or be rationed as a consumer, if it ever got to that point. As we've talked about in the past, this particular milestone appears physically acceptable, but how we got to having to accept it, we were not consulted. There was no in consultation with fellow applicants, so to speak. So,
but if I may, Mr. Riley and members of the board, there's a difference between interpreting an order, applying an order, and modifying an order. This letter goes to how should the order be properly interpreted, how should it be properly applied. That's all fair game. What you're suggesting is an actual change, a modification to the order itself. That of course could happen, but that's not what is at play here. That would have to go to a brand new hearing. And then secondly, even if it were modified, then the arena would go over to the Public Utilities Commission and saying, okay, there has been an imposition based upon CalAm. Who should bear that? Is that a cost of doing business that is properly passed on to the ratepayer or not? So it's a bit complicated. The state board alone would not be able to determine who should ultimately pay that. But at the moment, that's not what's at play. What's at play is interpreting and applying the order, and that's what this letter goes.
Thank you, Dave. And I'm not sure what I'm asking in terms of legal language, but I'm suggesting that there is an argument that can be made in a letter that goes to the State Water Board that the consumers are being highlighted as absorbing the penalty when they had nothing to do with the action. I just want to point one other thing too, is that the State Water Board, in a recent letter from the executive director there, suggested that, and this was the November 17th letter, suggested CalAm begin to secure a near-term solution. And I'm wondering if that cannot be highlighted in our letter to the State Water Board and say we support the near-term solution. I'm not sure exactly where this letter stands. I mean, could it be sent in January as opposed to right now? Is there some language that maybe could be a little more expansive in terms of our argument without trying to change the legality of a legal argument, creating a legal argument?
Yeah, if I could weigh in, you kind of raised 2 points. I think the highlighting of a phrase in her letter of November 17th in this letter is doable and not substantive. So, with the agreement of the board, that would just be one of these other edits. To your first discussion, Mr. Laredo and I have had conversations about you can't really assert harm until harm is imminent or has actually occurred. So while the threat of the cascading missing of milestones might result in a diversion limit that the community cannot handle, and therefore some rationing or fines and penalties or things like that, we're not there yet. So even though we can kind of assert that there's going to be this burden on the ratepayer and the consumer, the burden or the harm hasn't actually happened yet or isn't even an imminent threat currently. But we'd have to revisit that with the next milestone being missed and so forth. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, I'll just close out my comments that I support Karen Paul's idea that if this letter could go with some other edits in the direction that we've been discussing, that would work for me. Thank you.
Any other questions? General Counsel, do we have a deadline on this? Could it come back in January? I hate to send something out without the public seeing.
I don't believe there is a specific deadline, but that November letter has been sitting out there for a while, and the pace at which the state board acts, I think for us to miss a beat here is just going to compound that.
Okay. What's the board's desire? One more minute here. I think we had Arlene, did we have a resident out there that had their hand up, but it came in late?
Yes, Chair Edwards, two persons raised their hands after we had closed the public hearing or the public portion. John Tilley and Marlene Melton.
Okay, tell them where to take them.
So we're ready if you wanted to raise your hands again, and you could make your comment. Oh. Okay. John Tilley, please present your comment.
Thank you, Arlene. Would prefer not to comment, just not easy to avoid doing so. Seeing that on one hand, you're trying to say that you're not engaged in any sort of behavior that is restricting development of water rights and supplies here in this area. On the other hand, you're doing your very best to litigate, to challenge, and to once again not live up to the responsibilities of developing water supply projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Bayer, please present your comment.
Yeah, I agree with Director Edwards. I was a little uncomfortable having the board approve on a letter where they're going to make edits afterwards. And though maybe not substantive, important. And I understand that I heard, time is of the essence, but it would be nice if you could accommodate an opportunity to get those edits in and at least get the board to look at it again, even if the public can't. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Marley Melton, did you want to make a comment? You had your hand up earlier. All right. Marley, did you want to make a comment? Your hand was up earlier. Okay, I'm going to have to mute Marley. I see no other raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
So I did have a couple of questions on this and some comments, and I did not have a chance to get back to Dave today on it. There's some things in here that are some minor grammatical ones, but there's some that are just unclear, some sentences that are unclear to me, and others that I think could stand some rework and some different wording. So I would be uncomfortable just putting it out there that I'd like, this paragraph edited to be more clear without knowing what the outcome of that was, and yet knowing that letter went out the door. So I would recommend getting the edits in and then bringing it back. And if time is of the essence, that I think it would be fair to call a special meeting with one item on the agenda if you feel that this needs to go back out to the public before being sent.
Second. I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a first by Director Evans and a second by Director Potter. Director Anderson, you was waving your hand. Your comments.
I'll give a third.
Yeah, one other option, which has happened before when it's been requested that I pull together a letter and have it ready to go, and then we have this kind of situation. We have accepted edits individually, not copy all. We've brokered those edits into a revision and then sent it back out individually to the directors. And if it's satisfactory at that point, again, without copy all, then if it's a majority of the directors saying, yeah, that reflects what we talked about at the board meeting and is acceptable, then it's the original motion to approve subject to some additional edits rather than a special meeting or a January board meeting. So however you want to do it.
I think for me, Mr. Chair, it's just a little too sketchy around the serial meeting aspect. And so I'd rather we not do it that way and go with the intent of the motion, which is to have it fully redrafted and brought back to the public for review and public discussion, dissemination, and decision by the board.
And in this age of Zoom, it's a heck of a lot easier to get a special meeting scheduled.
Exactly.
So once we get the letter, are you saying that we would not be able to provide edits to it or other suggestions? Or
No, the idea would be to get whatever edits I've received or I'm about to receive, revise the letter, send out a red line and a clean version of the revision, accept any more edits, and then when we think we've got the final draft, take it to a special meeting. We can go ahead and start scheduling that special meeting just so we get on the calendar. But it might be the type of special meeting that lasts less than half an hour.
that sounds good to me. I think that's fine. Let's just do it.
Okay. I will agree with that too, as long as we can have the meeting, as long as the letter can be drafted. And I hope all the directors will tell the GM what they are looking for. I just want a response from the state. And I want, if we got to go into the monetary things, I don't want that 1,000 acres laid on us and we haven't done nothing wrong. That's my big complaint about it. And Cal-Am is not standing up for us, plain and simple. They not. They said it's our fault, and it's not our fault. We did not withdraw that application. We didn't tell a judge to put a restraining order on them. And they went in there and said, we are at fault, and I'm against that. And that's why this letter is going out when we get it prepared. So make your comments. Any other?
Do you need a motion?
I support that solution to make our edits and make sure we come up with a letter that is the one we want to send. We all have a chance to contribute to the edits, review them, and that. But we don't. I wouldn't want to wait for the January meeting. So I think the special meeting solution is the best of the suggestions we've had.
If you don't want to wait for January, the special meeting is going to be available. So GM and Arlene, y'all make it happen. Y'all doing a good job on that. I also want to thank the cities. They got copied on this letter. I hope they looked at it. And they have any comments, they can get back with us. I don't think we're going to have another pack meeting with them. The GM and Arlene set up one, and they know what's happening. So, okay. Any other questions? We'll call a vote on this one. And the motion is to revise the letter and to bring it back for a special meeting so the public can be involved.
Who made the motion and seconded?
Molly, seconded by Potter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She called the trouble and she's still here. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Riley. Looks like he's having some Wi-Fi issues possibly.
Spinning.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Still- Okay,
Director Edwards.
yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank. What's next, Jim? You're on mute, Dave.
That item 15 is an action item for the board to consider whether any additional communication should take place between the district and the Coastal Commission. I think when originally envisioned, we anticipated that the Coastal Commission would move forward with the Cal-Am application and that you would be forming a policy on what to say and how to intervene in the actual hearing for the new application. But on December 3rd, the commission went ahead and deemed the application incomplete. So I'm not sure there's much of an additional position the board can take at this time that was not perhaps laid out in our December 1st letter. But if there is, I would be happy to work with you to further develop a position. There are no known dates for a new application or a rehearing. So it may be a letter that would demonstrate a position that might not be timely until we have more information.
Any board questions? Director Paul?
Well, I agree with what the general manager, how you described the situation and the timing, and the letter already sent by the district was very good. And from what I can make of the letter, the notice of incomplete application, CalAm has a lot of work to do to satisfy, to complete the application based on my reading of that letter. So it seems to me that I agree with you. Right now, we don't need to do anything right further at this moment.
Question, board members.
Comment, I agree. I think the ball is in their court and we don't need to intervene at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Edwards, this is
yes.
Director Evans. I don't know if we need it, but can I make a motion to take no action tonight?
Yeah, you can make a motion. Let me take it out to the public. Wait a minute. Let me take it out to the public first, and then you can make your motion.
Okay. So let me ask the question: does it require a motion to take no action, or do we just not take action? I guess that's a procedural question that I have.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Laredo answer that when we get back from the public. Okay, Arlene, take it out to the public, please.
I see a raised hand. John Tilley, please present your comment.
Could we please hear from Mr. Laredo first?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to respond?
You are muted. Let me
Mr. Chair, your board took formal action to pass on any additions or corrections to the agenda. So this is on your agenda. I do believe that it's appropriate to either continue or to have a motion to take no action.
Okay. Mr. Tilley, you still got comment? Want to make comment? You still got time.
Am I muted?
Yes, you
yes,
are.
you are.
Thank you. It's very difficult to listen to this kind of an agenda item after the last agenda item. Either you are cooperating with seeking a water supply project or you're seeking litigious behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Michael Bear, please present your comment.
Yeah, sorry to get in a bicker contest, but I would just ask Mr. Tilley to read the letter of incompleteness from the Coastal Commission to see how far CalAm, how much is not done yet, and how building the desal plant is a pipe dream.
I see no other raised, excuse me, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you, Arlene. Back, George Raleigh. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, I'm not going to support. I think there was a motion intended to table this or something. I forget what it was. I think it ought to be in the category of the prior letter that there may be some edits needed, and maybe this could be subject to review or revisiting in a January special meeting. I've got several comments I just want to make about the status that seems to exist between CalAm and the Coastal Commission. One is that there's no particular willingness on the CalAm to compromise on a near-term solution, which I think is a point I made at the last lecture. There's no CalAm willingness to support a hearing before the State Water Board. They have the full authority or discretion to request such a hearing. They passed on that. And now they're trying to do a kind of I think a kind of a, I don't necessarily call it an end run, but just kind of manipulate the system process a little bit. There's no new CalAm technical or legal response that addresses the technical or legal data that they raise about the decision from the Coastal Commission. All CalAm reliance seems to be on the CPUC's decision, which is dated now, substantially dated and out of date. There's an emphasis on there's a lack of emphasis from CalAm on the glaring weakness of preparing for the demand on the outfall and the engineering requirements, the planning requirements, the design requirements. They've just taken a pass on that. And there's no engagement with the applicants on trying to generate a consolidated response, or at least what appears to be the expectation of the State Water Board, that all the applicants would have some discussion about how this is going forward. I just think there are a lot of issues that can still be raised with the Coastal Commission, and I would just, I'm just suggesting those comments fit the same decision we made on the prior letter, that maybe the letter could be redrafted or revised in some fashion to make more points, and let's take it up in a January special meeting.
Yeah, just for clarification, in this particular case, we already sent a letter December 1st. The thinking was that with 2 new board members, we would want to caucus and develop a new policy, but that may, as I said at the outset, may be unnecessary at this time because we don't have a schedule for either reapplication or hearing.
Chair Edwards?
Yes, go ahead, Director Evans.
If I may, I'd like to make a motion to take no action tonight. It seems like there's really nothing to take action on. There is no application in there. We have nothing really to comment on until CalAm puts forth the application or clears up the incompleteness of its application. So I move that we take no action on this agenda item tonight and put it on a future agenda item when there's something to discuss.
Okay, do we have a second out there? Director,
I'll second it for discussion.
second and for the discussion with Director
So
Potter.
Is the maker of this motion willing to set it for a date certain? I mean, I don't want to continue this on forever either. I kind of agree with George, but it does seem like, just like the other one, there's an awful lot of unknown issues that we'd want to incorporate into the letter. So, I mean, as long as we can get to a date certain, I'm fine with that, but I don't want to just not have any decision on this at all.
Well, no, I understand. And because the application is incomplete, and I believe CalAm does have the opportunity to complete that application or at least respond to the parts that are missing, that I don't know what it is that we're discussing at this point. There is no complete application, and I'm not sure why we're even having the discussion in the first place. But for the sake of argument, sure, I will entertain continuing it to a date certain.
So I can pick a date.
Oh, I would prefer to have it on a regular board agenda versus a special meeting if possible. But since I don't know when the CalAm's response to their to the Coastal Commission's letter will be, I'll put forth the February board meeting.
Yeah, the February board meeting is what I was going to suggest, and it may still be up in the air at that time, but it should at least be readdressed.
So for the sake of discussion, I will amend my motion to move it to the February regularly scheduled board meeting.
My second will stand then.
Okay, just on the second, you know, we need to make a comment on this. The past board made a comment. I want to know what this board want to do. The 15th, the June 15th letter, I believe it was. Yeah, it made a statement from the past board on a 4-3 to deny that project. I'm still on that, denying that project. I'm still on the expansion next. and then we can look at the regional desal in the long term. I like what she said in her letter to State Water Board, near term and long term. Near term is the expansion. Phase 1 and phase 2 of the expansion. Long term is a desal. We need to make a statement now. I want us involved in this. I just don't want us standing on the sideline. I want us involved in this. We've been accused of being involved in it with our water supply demand report. And I stand by that. But we need to be involved, and we need to be involved now. So if we put it out front, they cannot sit up there and say that we're holding up on them. We're causing problems. Read those letters. You need to read them because they're saying we cause them problems. No, we don't. No, we're not. We're trying to put water on board in the correct way that I feel and that you should feel. We have projects set up and they, I just didn't like what they've been doing and you shouldn't like it either. But I can hold up on this letter to the 15th. I like it for it to be ready for that special meeting for that next letter, that first letter that we put out. So that's my comments. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, if I might suggest procedurally, it does seem to me that there's consensus that there does need to be a review of the letter and perhaps a redrafting of it. So maybe if somebody is uncomfortable with the time span between now and the February date, although I do think there is a good reason to put it at the February date, somebody could attempt to make an amending motion regarding the date that was set. It is part of the motion, but I think the rationale, I don't disagree with anything you're saying at all, Alvin, at all. I just don't want to have to write a letter and then find out we need to write a supplemental letter because the project description has changed.
I agree with that, Director Potter. Okay, any other board questions? Director Riley?
I just I think it does require a little more attention to the specifics in such a letter. And as long as the timing in February doesn't handicap us in any way, it's an easy option to support for me.
Hey, thank you, GM. I still like for you to find out from the Coastal Commission, can we intervene or is it another way? Because I just don't want to throw it out there, intervene, and they put us on the outside again like we were on the last time. I want to be on this board should want to be on the inside of this. So could you please find that out?
Yeah, we did have that discussion in the previous set of hearings that, obviously at the 0 hour, they pulled back their application. So yeah, we will do the same.
Okay, thank you. Another question, we've got a motion on the table. Roll call vote, please.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Yes.
Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Potter?
Aye.
Director Evans?
Aye.
And Director Edwards? Director Edwards?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll talk about this in February. What's the next item, Jim?
We've already addressed item 16, so we move to item 17, which is a resolution authorizing an exception to the CalPERS 180-day wait period for rehire. This is an interim term contract for Arlene. Her replacement will join the district January 4th, so we did not, and Arlene's retiring December 30th. So we were unable to cross over with training and orientation, introduction to where the files are kept and things are hidden. Certainly Sarah Reyes, Suresh and myself will make ourselves available, but we did want Arlene to be available to shadow or spend time with the new hire and then be available for questions or inquiries on an as-needed basis. We have no intention of ruining her fun or shortening her vacation schedule, but as you've all pointed out, she is an asset to the district and knows quite a bit and would lend a great deal of knowledge. We certainly do not expect it to last 180 days or use all the hours that would result in the figure you saw in the staff note. Nevertheless, she should be compensated for any assistance that she provides, and we want her to provide assistance. And this has to be done in open session. It could not be on consent, which is, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Any board questions? Okay, let's take it to the public, see if they have any questions or comments. Arlene, please open up to the public. You put yourself on mute.
I apologize. I'm sorry for that. I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion from the board?
I move approval.
Okay, I'll second it. Okay, any comments on the second? Comments from me, Arlene, thank you for doing this. We need you. I appreciate you staying over for a few weeks or a few months. And I want you to have your retirement because it's a pretty good life out there. So, but I appreciate this. We'll try to get that young man going as soon as possible. Okay. No other questions or no comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Director Pop,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Arlene. Next comment. Next item.
Yes, so the next item is item 18, which is an action item calling for applications and discussing the process to fill the position of Director, Division 3. I've attached a Division 3 map for any of the members of the public who want to know if they're lucky enough to live within the boundaries and have that opportunity. The staff note has the general procedure laid out pursuant to Government Code Section 1780. I think it's pretty straightforward. The key thing here, the action that we're requesting from the board, is to authorize staff to put out a request for statements of interest from potential candidates, yet retain the right to call for an election once you see what the candidates look like that come in. The goal would be to consider it at the January board meeting. I think that the date may have changed. I think we're the 25th and the 28th at this point. So it would be the January 25th board meeting. Nevertheless, you can make that decision at the time whether you like what you see from candidate statements and move forward with an appointment, or if you'd rather wait for an election. We are still trying to confirm if in fact August 31st is the earliest scheduled, regularly scheduled election. We know there's one in early May that the county will administer primarily for the sole purpose of establishing a community facilities district in the East Garrison project area. But whenever there is a county administered election, you can add other things to it, and that meets the four corners of a regularly scheduled county supervised election. So this is scheduled, but for now, we're just calling on you to authorize us to ask for statements of interest.
Board questions before we take it to the public. Go ahead, Director Potter.
So, Dave, at some point we will know the cost of going to a special election or or regular scheduled election, whatever we may have to do.
Yes, and in fact, I talked to the registrar's office last Thursday, and the person who was on phone duty couldn't answer really anything, and sent me to submit an email, and that is one of the questions that was in the email, and I expect a response. I think I saw something in my inbox this morning, so I haven't looked at that yet.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there, board members? Okay, we're going to take it to the public and then we'll come back. Arlene, could you please take it out to the public?
John Tilley, please present your comment. I've unmuted you. John Tilley, please make your comment.
Thank you, Arlene, and thank you for all your years of service. You've been exceptional and tremendous to work with. I'm curious about how this came about, just how was it like this path chosen where you're becoming an appointed position, and was there a particular discussion among board members, or were there any sort of indications in the proceedings of how you came to this determination that this is a route you wanted to go versus a public election? I'd be really interested in knowing how that came to pass. And I would also suggest that just a phone call into the election board isn't sufficient for such a gravity. This is the election process. We just went through an important election for our entire country, and just deciding that the idea of appointing versus electing is repugnant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Baer, please present your comment.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I was part of that process to replace Bob Brower. I was a candidate. And the first question I have is it for a full 4-year term that you are appointing? I'm thinking, okay, so we did 4 and 5. 3, 4, and 5 were on the ballot this time around. So Alvin and George are going to be on the ballot in 2022. And why not have, I'm more comfortable with you appointing a 2-year term. I'm also wondering, is Molly, how long is Molly going to stick around until there's a replacement, or are you going to be a 6-person board? I'm not sure about that. But I just want, as smart as this board is, I think the public is smarter in terms of, making a choice. And, last choice could have been different. And the idea of you making a choice that you're committed to for 4 years concerns me a lot. So I'm just wondering, if you are going to appoint, I would strongly suggest to see if you can make it a 2-year appointment. And they could face the voters. For them not to face the voters for 4 years, very discouraging. The other thing is people are burnt out. I mean, people are still, sending money to Georgia. Like the elections are not over, and we're all exhausted from elections. And, I think people will be willing to come back in May. But the idea of trying to have a special election in the next couple of months, I just don't, people have had it. So I think you got to wait a little time. And I see I have 8 seconds left, so I'm going to quit now. Thank you.
Through the chairman, I can address.
Thank you, Michael Baer. Wait a minute, JGM. Let's get through public comment.
Oh, is there more?
I see no other raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Thank you, Arlene.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment on this as well.
Okay, General Manager, you want to go first, and then General Counsel?
Yeah, so in the staff note, you can see the timeline. To Mr. Tilley's comments, no decision has been made to appoint. There was no discussion. It's what are our options. But if you wanted to appoint, then getting those candidate statements in as soon as possible makes sense. Second of all, the Government Code Section 1780 asks for, if you choose an election, it has to be on a regularly scheduled election date, not a special election. And then third, this timeline in here does in fact take you both paths. So if you choose to appoint, an appointed director would serve only until the November election in 2022. So that's your 2-year term. And then that person would have to run for another 2-year term to get back on the 4-year cycle of 2024. If we have an election, which on the current calendar says no sooner than August 31st, but as I said, we'll clarify that. If it is at election, then they would be elected all the way through the end of the normal 4-year term in November of 2024. And Mr. Laredo.
Thank you.
General Counsel.
Mr. Chairman, your general manager is absolutely correct. This is all set by the government code. It's very, very specific as to what happens when you have a vacancy. It all is triggered by the effective beginning date of the vacancy. My understanding is that Director Evans has tendered her resignation. The vacancy will begin tomorrow. So that begins a 60-day window under which this board can decide either to appoint for the following 2 years until the next general election, and then there will be an election for the partial term, or hold an election for the remainder of the term. Those are your choices. You only have a 60-day window to do that. If you do not do that within 60 days to either appoint or set the election, then the authority goes to the County Board of Supervisors, and the County Board of Supervisors is required to set the election. That is it. So in essence, your decision not to do something within 60 days means that an election will be held. So you have this short window. You have, during this time, you have to provide notice to the registrar. You have to, if you're going to entertain appointments, you have to publish so that the potential candidates can come forward. And that all has to happen within this window. And even the election date is itself set by law. So you don't have a lot of discretion. What you do have is a decision. Do you wish to appoint or do you wish to set the election? So if you can, by recruiting potential candidates, then you'll have an informed decision that you can make at the next meeting.
Any board questions? Any other board questions? Okay, Arlene, let's open that up to the public, please.
We already, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think you already went to the public.
Yes, we did.
Oh, we did? Okay, thank you. Any other board comments, motions?
I move that we, what is it? That we recruit or announce a vacancy for volunteers to submit applications.
Okay, do we have a second out there? I'll
Second.
second it for discussion. Got a little slow. Okay, discussion on this item, on the motion. Go ahead, Director Anderson.
I want to just ask, I don't know if that I heard it correctly, but if we don't get applications, very many, or ones that we're interested in, can we then make a decision to go to an election or not? Are we committed if we go out to ask for people's interest? Are we committed to that route?
Through the chair, my understanding of the motion is that you're seeking statements from potential candidates, but you are not making that decision. You're retaining the right to choose to call an election instead. That you'll be making that decision once you have actually examined those who may choose to submit their statement of interest.
And
thank you.
And to Mr. Loretta's earlier point, if the board fails to make either decision within 60 days, then we vacated the right to make the decision to the County Board of Supervisors, who, in addition to calling an election, does have the ability within 90 days to appoint. So you would be ceding your authority to control the district's destiny somehow.
Any other questions?
Sir,
Go
I
ahead
have a
there,
comment.
Director Evans.
Thank you. So I've been representing Monterey now for 5 years, and I think the people of Monterey deserve to have a voice in the selection of my replacement. So I would highly recommend that you consider us going to an election. And reason being is that Monterey has without their directly elected director, they have no representation on this board other than Mary Adams, who is also representing the rest of the jurisdictions. On an appointment, I find it disappointing that you will have 6 people that are appointing my replacement and none, save Mary, will represent Monterey. So nobody will have Monterey's best interests at heart. So I think the people of Monterey would deserve to select their representative on this board. That's my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. I don't disagree that it's worth going out to see what the interest level looks like, but I would highly recommend going out for an election for those reasons.
Thank you, Director Evans. Any other comments out there? Just one for me. I like to see what's out there and like to bring it back to the board. I think that one date on the 25th of, I think it's December, January is our general meeting. And on the 28th, I think is going to be the special meeting for this. I don't want anything done the board shouldn't want anything done in a regular meeting because it got too much. I like to set it. If we could set it earlier for it, I will. Is 15 days going to be enough time? Because you're going into the holidays.
Right.
Anybody say I didn't have enough time to make up my mind?
Well, we are assisted a little bit by a later January schedule. So we've got, 10 days going into the holiday and then 3 weeks in January. But you are correct. It may be that we just bad timing. I do want clarification from General Counsel that anything requiring a supermajority means it requires 5 out of 7 votes. But if there is an open seat, the supermajority remains 5 out of 7. It doesn't go to 4 out of the 6.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You need supermajority requires 5 votes.
Any other questions? Director Raleigh, I see you.
Yeah, question. Where does the supermajority come into play?
Measure J.
Well, but that's Measure J. This is only the vacancy issue.
Mr. Riley, the hypothetical question at the moment. We don't have any matter requiring a supermajority coming for you.
And we also don't have a firm election calendar from the registrar. Arlene did some terrific research, over a month ago and came up with 3 dates from the registrar. But the registrar has not posted any future elections on its own calendar. We did get the May date through the Secretary of State's calendar. So we do need to confirm those, but it has to be no sooner than 130 days from the effective date, which means the early May date doesn't work. And so you're just, you're looking at things with election calendars and how long it takes to be open.
If I may, those are all issues that will be discussed at the next meeting. It does not pertain to this motion.
Okay, if we open it up on January the 4th, on December the 14th, what is our closing date? January the 14th, or what should it be?
It'll be prior to the board packet being released for the special meeting. In conference with chair and vice chair, if we're not getting any candidates and it does not appear you will want to interview, then you could maybe move this item of action to the regular meeting. But we'll discuss that when we get into chair, vice chair agenda settings.
Okay. I would like to set a date though for it to close because I don't want it to be floating open and people humming and hawing.
Totally agree. We'll pick a date probably early in the week prior to January 25th.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Went out to the public? Okay, we're voting on the motion. Open it up. Go ahead, roll call, Sarah, please.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Can you restate the motion?
I believe it was to call for statements of interest from potential candidates interested in serving for the Division 3 director, retaining the right to choose instead to call an election.
Thank you, council. Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye, yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passed 7-0. Thank you. Jim, what's the next item?
Well, I do want to say that Director Potter and I will pay our bet on the over and under for an 8 o'clock end time on this meeting. It's now almost 8:30. This is our last action item. This is conducting election of board officers for 2021. It's usually a fairly amicable rotation. Unfortunately, it's not a simple rotation this year because Director Byrne, as Division 4 director, would have rotated into the chair position. And our meeting rules state that the in rotating chair must have at least a year experience on the board. Because Director Paul is newly elected, she's not qualified to serve as chair. So the reading of the meeting rule through General Counsel myself is that you freeze the rotation for 1 year, which means Director Paul will be the vice chair for the ensuing calendar year, but that the board needs to elect an interim chair to serve the calendar year rather than a rotation. Because Director Anderson also has the same 1 year issue, and Director Evans is resigned effective tomorrow, and Director Potter has not gone through the confirmation process of the mayor's select committee. It appears that you only have 3 directors to choose from: Director Adams, Director Riley, and Director Edwards. All may vote on it.
Any comments from the board before we take it to the public?
Well, I'd just like to know how we proceed. I mean, procedurally, how we're going to make this decision.
Yeah, so somebody from the directorship would nominate an interim director, and then by majority vote, that director could be chosen. If it does not get the majority, there could be a new nomination from your floor, and so on until you exhaust all possibilities. Then I have no idea what to do.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, Arlene, take it out to the public, please. 2 minutes.
All right, I see one raised hand. Mr. Tilley, did you want to speak under this item?
Yes, please. Thank you, Arlene. Thanks again. That last description of the diplomatic process, the democratic process, the election process was unacceptable. The idea that the choice of the next seat on the board should be based upon achieving a supermajority versus a democratic process is something you should deeply consider and look at the really function of how you're behaving as a board. You're not there to achieve a goal of one thing or another. You're there to achieve the outcome of the process of democracy and just really representing the district. Trying to shoehorn this in a timing pattern so that you have a supermajority versus an elected official is just not a good route to go. And it just shows a chance for you to choose between how you conduct yourselves. Thank you very much.
Of order, Mr. Tilley was relitigating the prior action item.
Yeah, it sounded like that. Okay. Arlene, anybody
Michael
else?
Bear. Michael Bear, please present your comment.
Yeah, and just responding to Mr. Tilley, I would say that the people chose a supermajority when we chose Adam, Amy Anderson, and Miss Paul and Miss Evans again. So, 6-1, 7-0. I don't think it matters.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Can you help us out and stick with the actual agenda item?
Yes. So I was going to use this opportunity. I've been waiting the whole meeting to give my praises to Director Edwards for a phenomenal year of leadership. And now I understand he might have another one in him if he's willing to do it. And I endorse all three. I imagine Mary Adams is a very busy person, and I would love to see George Riley lead this crew and see how he manages order. So I'm looking forward to your vote, and I guess I have to wait and see if I say thank you, Mr. Edwards, for your service, because you might still be stuck in this job. But I stuck around the whole meeting just so I could say thank you, Alvin, for a great year.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Melody Crislock, please present your comment.
Melody Crislock, Public Water Now. I just want to say that Director Edwards' leadership has been just amazing this year. Brave, courageous. I am so pleased with what he has accomplished and what he has risked. I would love to see him accept another year in this unusual situation. That's really just, thank you, Alvin. I mean, it's just been wonderful to see your thinking and thinking how this can work, to really offset what CalAm has tried to do over this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Caller, please present your comment.
Oh, I would just like to echo what the other members have just stated about Alvin. It's been absolutely spectacular as a leader, and he's so proactive and dynamic and a go-getter. It would be great to keep him for another year if he wants to stay on, because he is really a dynamo. And thank you, Alvin, for doing such a great job for our communities.
And thank you.
I see no other raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Thank you, Arlene. Back to the board.
Chair Edwards,
Yes, Director Evans.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate George Riley for the chairship for next year.
Do we have a second out there?
Do I have a chance to comment?
If there's no second, you won't have to. Do we have a second out there? Okay, motion dies without a second. You don't have to comment, George.
I'd like to nominate you, Alvin Edwards, and I'll give my reasons later during discussion.
All right, thank you. Do we have a
I'd
second?
like to second that. Yes, I second that.
All right, we got a motion by Director Riley and a second by Karen Paul.
No, second by Supervisor Mary Adams.
Oh,
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't see you, Mary. I don't see you. I take that back.
I'm yelling at you.
Yeah, I see you.
Mary beat to it.
Okay, thank you. And motion by Director Riley and second by Director Adams. Discussion.
I would like to just comment briefly, not just what the public comments have made. Alvin, I think you have been very insistent on starting time, getting the public involved, and you insist on all that. The transparency commitment you have is just a marvel. And I think you've run the meetings very well, and you treat people with respect, and you treat the district members with respect, and things are moving. So in a way, I think where we have been this past year, and where we seem to be going next year, you would be a very laudable leader for keeping things going. So that's kind of why I nominated you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the second? Go ahead there, Director Anderson.
Yes, I've heard everything people have said, and I've only watched, basically one chair, but I also agree that you've done a great job. And it seems to me that keeping things within the rotation, this would be a way to keep, it's kind of like freezing the frame. We'll stay like this until we have another director and we can start rotating again. But I also think that old adage, don't change horses in the middle of the stream, is a good idea. Especially when you got a good horse.
Ma'am, any other comments? If no other comments, I'd like to tell you, I will accept.
Potter has a comment.
Who?
Director Potter.
Director Potter, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
I was just going to agree with George and also with Amy. That, and I think you throw in the entertainment factor. It's a slam dunk here, Alvin. I mean, really. I think you've got a certain nature about you that's very convivial, very exciting, and I like it. So I'm all in favor. Me, no disrespect, of course, to you, George. I mean, honestly, you'd have done a great job, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to keep up with Alvin's wit.
Thank you, all you directors. Thank you, especially George Riley. I want to thank you because George said I don't want to be chair, so I appreciate him giving me the nomination. I appreciate Director Adams giving the second because we discussed it. I appreciate what I have done and what this board have done this year. I really do. We have done a lot, and we're going to move forward next year and doing some more and keeping this community involved in water because it's a big issue now because we know all the mayors trying to move to Monterey 1. So water is big, and I want to thank you. And Molly, I still want to thank you because I got one more meeting, and you might not make that one. All right, call for the roll call vote, please.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Potter?
Aye.
Director Paul?
Yes.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Riley?
Aye.
And Director Edwards?
You can vote for yourself.
Aye. I don't know why y'all can't hear me. I'm yelling.
Motion passes 7-0.
7-0. Thank you.
So two additional items on this item. One is that if Mr. Riley does run for re-election in 2022, he will naturally rotate into the chairmanship in 2025, as shown in the chart and the staff note. So you may get him anyway. The second, though, is it's currently the recommendation was that Division 4 shall serve as vice chair with the rotation frozen. I think the only way to undo that would be a director to make a motion to stray from the rotation in the meeting rules. So absent a motion to depart from the rotation, then the vice chair is filled by Director Paul.
Okay, we don't have to make a motion to make Director Paul the vice chair.
No, you do not.
Okay, good. Okay. What's the next item? Is that reading us in the closed session?
That would be to take public comment on the closed session.
Okay. We got a closed session. Mr. Do we have any, read us in and I ask, do we have any comments?
This is the same item that was referenced during your general counsel's report. It's the one item of litigation, California American Water Company versus Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. This is a challenge to the district certification of the EIR.
Do we have any comments from the public on our closed session item? Arlene, you on mute? Arlene, you still on mute?
I'm sorry. Melody Crislock, did you want to comment on this item?
Oh, sorry. No. You're that.
Thank you. Michael Baer, did you want to comment on this item? Did you want to comment on this item, Michael?
Yes, please. Okay.
All right, please go ahead.
So I read the article in the Pinecone, and I was enraged by it, particularly when they mentioned piecemealing. And I'm thinking about how they piecemealed in the water bridge, how they piecemealed in the pump station, how they tried to piecemeal in that extra pipeline that you guys voted down a couple of months ago. These guys, you know, it's doublespeak. I hate to bring in the national election, but man, it's just like, you know, whatever they're projecting their own negative, terrible stuff onto you, and then to say, you know, it's the environmental impacts have not been studied. You know, when we're looking at their desal plant and their piecemealing, and so just go in there and come out with your sabers on, and let's go kick their butt. I'm mad. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, any more out there for closed session?
Marley Melton, would you like, please present your comment.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm a little bit unclear. This is, do you have to respond in court? Or is this a response to a suit that may be brought, or has this already been filed? One of the things that occurs to me, and I think I've written on this subject before, is the reason we all want Measure J and the public water, pure water expansion is that we will be paying less than we would under CalAm for all the reasons that your study disclosed. But we know that water rates will increase because instead of getting very inexpensive water from the Carmel River, we will have to produce and process water even under the pure water expansion. And being able to make this point without falling into some trap that will disqualify you from claiming savings under Measure J seems to me a bit of a challenge, but I'm sure it's something you can manage to address successfully. Thank you.
Chair Edwards?
Go ahead.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
excuse me, Chair Edwards, I'm sorry. There is another raised hand. Just a moment. Caller, please present your comment.
Yes, good evening again, Tom Raleigh, with a question that relates to the EIR. At the meeting when you approved the EIR, the draft EIR, you also discussed the two operating plans. And while they were treated as separate agenda items, they did really relate to one another. And I have not seen anything on this agenda today that indicates the status, or there was not a status report given by the general manager on where those draft operating plans, what happened to those. And it seems to me it's hard to comment on this EIR without knowing about the rest of that related item. And there also was an item that wasn't discussed, was the bypass for the ASR, which was supposed to going to come back for an update this time. So those are two items that relate either directly or indirectly to the EIR challenge by CalAm. So thank you very much.
Mr. Raleigh. Mr. Laredo, do you have to make any comments on any of those items?
Just to clarify that, in fact, CalAm did file a lawsuit. The case number is in the board packet. The action was filed on the 25th of November, and it is a lodged before the court. So the district's obligation is to file its response in court.
Okay. If no other questions or anything, let's adjourn to closed session. Arlene, what do?
All of the members of the public and anyone who is not a director should leave the meeting, and then once everyone who is not involved in closed session has left, then you can begin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.